Happy Saturday, everyone. We're getting ready for our live Q&A, but I thought I would just start by telling you guys a little bit about my day before I ask you about any questions that you might have. So today was an interesting day for me. I don't know if anybody knows what this feels like or has felt this recently, but our weather is not, sunny and bright. It's a bit dreary. It's basically been raining for a week. A lot of cloud cover, and it's really chilly. I'm not going to say cold because I've been in other areas of the country where it's cold, so I don't want to complain about the weather. But I will say there's just a huge overcast. The sun is gone. The sun has been gone for quite some time now. And I really didn't feel like getting out of bed this morning. And I want to be transparent about that because I know somebody else out there feels me on it. But I didn't feel like getting out of bed. I didn't feel like, doing the basic needs in life. And I thought to myself, as soon as I woke up, I was like, I'm having a day. So I said, what can I do today? And I said, what I'm going to do is I am going to hop up. I'm going to put myself together. I'm going to make myself look nice. And if that's all that I do today, then that is a good day today. So I wanted to throw that out there for anybody who might be like suffering with, the seasonal depression or just feeling like they're having a moment. I want to encourage you that you don't have to do a lot. All you got to do is get up and just make it great. Just get up, put yourself together, do all your hygiene things, make yourself pretty, and just go out there and conquer the world. Because I believe there's something about just that little extra step that makes a huge difference in your day. I certainly will say that I know it made a huge difference in my day. Just the fact that I put myself together. And then once I had myself together, my whole mood shifted. I felt more energy. I felt like I should get out the house. It happened organically and I didn't even force it. So I didn't force myself to get out the house. I didn't force myself to go run errands. I didn't force myself to do anything. All I forced myself to do was say, hey, girlfriend, you're going to get up. You're going to do all the things you normally do. You're going to make yourself look good. Even if you just sit down around the house, you're going to get up and put yourself together as if you are going to go make today great. Even if you're going to make today quiet in the house. And I think that's a word for everybody out there that might be like in the midst of one of your like, I don't know, having a quiet day, feeling a little bit off, the weather starting to get to you, all of those good things. I think that's a word for somebody. So I'm hoping that you guys can take that one and use it to your advantage. But as always, we're going to roll right into Ask Me Anything. So this is your chance to ask me any question in the whole wide world. Go ahead. Let me know where you guys are watching from and let me know what time it is where you're watching. I will start. It's Saturday. We're in the United States. It is 10:10 p.m. Eastern time. So yeah, welcome everybody. So yeah, it's your chance to ask me anything. We're live doing live Q&A, but I thought I would hop in here and see how you guys were doing. All right, I see. Um, I'm not sure what stray kids are. I'm kind of curious. Can you put that in the chat and explain what that is? Because I'm not sure what that is. I actually ended up getting out of the house, getting a chance to go, run my errands, and I did the weirdest thing today. Oh, it's a K-pop group. I don't know them. I don't know that. They're probably like a little bit outside of my generation. Um, but guys, let me know where you're watching from. Let me know what time it is where you're watching. It's your chance to ask me anything. So go ahead and put your city in the chat, put your time in the chat because it's 10:11 p.m. Eastern time. We're dialing into you guys from Atlanta. And of course, I wanted to figure out how you guys were doing today. And of course, you guys can ask me anything in the whole wide world. So let me know what's up. If you guys have questions, pop them in the chat and we'll see how tonight goes. So yeah, let me know, everybody. Let me know. Let me know. You support me and my channel. Thank you, Shirt. Welcome, welcome. So glad to have you on. So happy to have you on. Let's see. It's 10 p.m. For Willibert. Welcome. God made water for the plants and for people to drink. God made God made people spread the word, made woman a part of man because God took a heart, a rib from Adam to make a woman. Oh, that's so sweet. Um, um, let's see. I see it's Kentucky at 10:12 p.m. for Kentucky in the house. Welcome. Someone's asking, what's my hair care routine? Today, all I did was shampoo, condition, and then I put leave-in conditioner and I let it air dry. And then later on, like right before I went live, I sprayed the volumizer, but I didn't really do it right. I just sprayed the volumizer, but then I didn't blow dry it, so it didn't get any volume. It was just hairspray. But I highly recommend you turn yourself upside down, spray the volumizer, and then put the blow dryer diffuser in there because then it'll get big and fluffy. But I didn't do all that. I was just sorry, I pulled a lazy one. I just sprayed it. I didn't turn myself upside down. I just sprayed it. And then I was like, oh, it doesn't work. And I'm like, I'm not going to bother. And then I just pressed the login. But welcome. This is my lazy Saturday. So I'm sorry. Let's see, 812 for wandering. Welcome. Please pray for me to find a job where God wants me to be and a step in the purpose he has for me. Oh, yes, of course I will. I'll do that. I'll do that. Let's see. My opinions. Uh, I did not catch up to the news today, transparently, but it looks like there was some kind of ceremony. I don't know. You're gonna have to explain it to me in the chat what happened because you probably have more of an opinion on that one than me. Hi Shannon, welcome, welcome. We're doing Ask Me Anything, so it's your chance to put any question in the whole wide world in the chat. I'm a registered nurse. I have a seminary degree, a business degree, and I'm a doctor of healthcare administration. But that means you guys can ask me anything. So yeah, I wanted to hop in here and first tell you guys that today I was having a day. So transparently, I started off a little bit what you call slow and easy, and I wasn't having my best moment, and I really had to fight to get myself going today. So I don't know if anybody can feel me on that, but today is just one of those days. It's been like kind of cloudy and dark outside for a week, and it's chilly. I'm not gonna say it's cold because I don't want to like offend the weather because it's already chilly enough. But it's been chilly and gloomy for the last week. And I mean, I should really be grateful because we never really got any winter kicking in until about what time was it? It was Thanksgiving when winter started kicking in here. So it's been really like before Thanksgiving Day, actually, I had been outside pretty much every day with sunblock, with shorts, getting a suntan. I mean, that's what was up down here. So yeah. So what's my skincare regimen for the cold weather? Very good question. I do basic skincare routine, cleanser, toner, and moisturizer. That's what I normally use. For winter, my moisturizer is thicker than my summer moisturizer. So in the summer, I have a moisturizer that's technically an eye cream, under eye cream that I use. It's got collagen, peptides, um, niacinamide, hyaluronic acid, um, and some caffeine, a little bit of caffeine. And no, that one doesn't have the caffeine. And I use that. That's supposed to be for the under eye, but when I looked on the container, you can use it actually all over your face, and it's pretty thin. So that one I use all over my face in the summer, including around my under eye. In the winter, I do this cleanser, the toner, and then the moisturizer. But I do under eye, I do like a serum that is hyaluronic acid, vitamin C, and it's got caffeine 5% in there. I do that around the eye, and then I do my moisturizer. And then if it's a bit like it's been pretty gloomy, but when the weather's nice enough, then I will do like sunblock and all that too. So yeah, for the winter, It's just a thicker moisturizer. Um, I use that. So I think that's kind of like the basic routine that I think everybody should use. And then I do like facial massage, which I know is super weird, but it really works. I do facial massage, which means like it helps to get rid of your puffiness in your face, but you have to do diet on top of it as well. So obviously you have to keep your sodium, not take a whole lot of like table salt and be eating it right. But yeah, I actually I do facial massage for like to keep my like wrinkles away. I mean, part of that is just genetics because my dad doesn't have not a wrinkle, and he's a reasonably aged man, but he doesn't have not a wrinkle. So like but I do that, y'all, because like I don't want to get them either. So yeah, I just like actually I go here and I go out because that's gonna help keep the folds from around your mouth from like forming. So I just kind of go up and then I go over this way. I go up and I go over this way. And I kind of go out and out. But I mean, thankfully, I don't have any wrinkles, but I think you have to do I think it's good to do all those things is to like make sure that you're massaging your face in the right way, in the right, circles, just to make sure that whatever's puffy, because actually, y'all, a few weeks ago, I was actually puffier here. I really was, and I'm not making it up. I have video to prove it. You just go back and look at my old videos. I was puffier here. Now, some of that is weight loss because I lost 10 pounds. But even if like right before I went live, I might like sometimes just massage my face and literally you can see like it literally does fix. So it really does work. I'm like a living testament that it works. But anywho, hey guys, if you guys haven't already, go ahead. That's right, hit the like button. If you haven't already, go ahead, make sure you subscribe. Today, we're doing Ask Me Anything, so it's your chance to ask me anything in the whole wide world. Does the chat move fast? Today, it's not moving fast, so it's a good time for you to ask questions. Sometimes it's like truncating and I can't see anything, but today it's moving nice and slow. So it's a good time for you to ask questions. Normally we talk Bible things, but I'm a registered nurse and I have a business degree, and a seminary degree. So really, you can ask anything at all, and I'll answer your questions. But yeah, so I had interesting questions about how do I get my curls to do what they do? These are the lazier curls. When I do like properly, then they're more fluffy and big, which is what I actually prefer. But this is the lazy version, which means I like just shampooed and then I like conditioned and then I put leave-in conditioner and I scrunched it, but then I let it air dry, which means it'll be flat. If I would have like done my volumizer and then turned my hair upside down and then blew and then diffused it, it'd have been nice and full, which it just takes an extra like 20 minutes to do that. And transparently, I did not. I did not do it. But yeah. But I don't know much about that anime. Anime, you got all the interesting questions. You might be Gen Alpha anime. You might be Gen Alpha because I like literally don't know the answers to some of your questions. Y'all, can I tell you guys what I did today? Once I finally get out the door, let me tell you guys what I was up to. And for those of you guys who just hopped in there, be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. Be sure to turn on your notifications because I go live usually once a week at least. I want to make sure that you guys know that I had a hard time getting out of the house today and like just getting myself together. Eventually, I did do it. I did do what I need to do, but I want to show you guys the blessing in just like being obedient and doing the little bits. I want to show you guys a blessing because it took me a minute to get myself together and get out the house. But once I got out the house, I was all good. Like as soon as I put myself together, I feel like I just felt great and I was like fully energized and I was like ready for the world. I can't explain it, but it's something I used to do with my patients in the hospital all the time. I used to always say to them, look good, feel good. Now imagine these are patients in the ICU. So, I mean, you know, but I literally, I would say that all the time to them. I would say, look good, feel good. So then I would make sure they had their bath and I fluff them and stuff. And honestly, I really do feel like when you fluff a person enough, they're going to feel better because they've gotten clean and they're all fluffed. I mean, that's winning. So yeah, I actually did that for myself today. I had to do that for myself and like force myself to like, do the fluffing. I got out the door and I went to the grocery store and I went to, so there's an aisle that has, I don't know what made me do this, y'all, but I actually went to go look for, you know how on the bottom of your chairs, if you don't have a protector for like the chair, you can scratch up your hardwood floor. So one of my like kitchen chairs lost the little bottom. So I was like, oh, I need to go get a bottom for the chair because I don't want to scratch it at my floor. So I go shopping around for that little cover. And I end up like way in the back of the store, and I'm like walking past all the toys. I know you guys are think this is weird, but then it occurred to me, I haven't like I haven't gone down the toy aisle in years. And I feel like I don't know why one day I woke up and decided toys are not worthy of looking at anymore. Because there's for years I would like, everybody when you were little, you like, you looking at different toys and asking Santa for things and all that weird stuff. So, but like I don't know what age it happens that you don't go down the toy aisle anymore and you don't get inquisitive about it. So I'm going down the toy aisle today, and I'm looking at all like the baby dolls because I don't know, every girl likes a good baby doll. So I was looking at the baby dolls, and at first I was like, "Oh, look at this baby doll! Look at that baby doll!" And then, and then y'all, I turned my head, and like half of the aisle was all like witchcraft stuff. And this is Christmas time, y'all. Like literally Thanksgiving is over, meaning this is the next appropriate holiday. This like everything should be Santa and elves. And I saw no Santa, no elves, but all of the baby doll stuff, like at least on the aisle, half of them were all like, I don't know, like a monster this, you know, all those different things. All of the like every Disney movie that's wicked, all of those things. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I see what they've done. They've taken all of the Disney stuff and they've gotten like all these dark themes. And now they're putting the dark themes into the toys. And so most of the toys actually look like Halloween. I even came across one toy that was like, it was actually, y'all, no lie, it was a coffin. And it had like part of the toys were like, there was like a shovel for digging the grave and stuff. And I'm like, who decided that children should play with this? And so, anyway, on one note, I will say half of the aisle was like cute baby dolls. And y'all, Mattel is doing the most, and I love them so much. And like, who doesn't love a good Barbie in their life? The Barbies were doing the most. I was loving them, but the rest of the aisle was a mess. So I say all that to say, I mean, some of the themes for these dolls were crazy. Like some of them said like going out, and the dolls were having like these little mini skirts, and they just were like, I don't know what they're trying to teach the kids with these dolls, y'all. So I say all that to say, be careful out there for Christmas because I mean, most of the stuff was like dark themes, magic, all stuff that the Bible says is awful. And I'm like, just bring back a good old, like, you know, uh, Barbie doll house and like a Barbie with the cute outfits that you change. Like, just do that. Like, we don't need anything else. Just keep it basic. That being said, we're doing Ask Me Anything. It's your chance to ask me any question in the whole wide world. You guys go ahead and flood the chats with the questions. And let me know what time it is where you guys are, and let me know where you're watching from. And I'm gonna start. It is Atlanta here in the United States. It's 10:26 p.m. And guys, the chat has never been more cozy. It's your chance to ask me anything. So go ahead, pop it in the chat. Let's see. Excited for the World Cup in 2026. Let's see what else is going on in here. Let me know, guys. What's up? What's up? I'm gonna hop in my other room and see what's going on. Let's see. I haven't hopped on to Instagram in a minute. Let's see what they're up to. Give me a second. Let's see if I can make this thing stand up. Poor Instagram always gets me like, they get me like these weird angles of my neck where like, I don't know. It's not really like a flattering look. Let me give them a proper angle for once. Let me actually do this the right way for once. All right. I don't normally do it the right way for them. All right. For a second. I'll keep them on for a few minutes. All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back, everybody. We're live with the Victory Life Podcast on YouTube. Victory Life Podcast 7603. It's your time to ask me anything. So go ahead and pop it in the chat. If you guys have a question, let me know what question you have and let me know what time it is where you are. All right, let's see what kind of questions we have in the chat. And of course, I take your Bible questions, your health related questions, your business questions, all of that. Let's see what you guys got. We're in the chat in Atlanta. It is 10:28 p.m. Eastern time. Let me know if you guys are watching from around the world. Let's see. I love to do my Bible thing, but guys, I'm just gonna tell you. We were talking earlier about basically seasonal depression, and I feel like it kind of gets overlooked. But I think it's a combination of like, for some people, the holidays aren't the same as for others. I'll just say that. And for other people, it's just weather related, all these things. It kind of gets the best of you, and you don't feel like being the best version of yourself. So I think the lesson for today is it's important to get up and just put yourself together. Even if you're not going to get out the house, even if you're not going to run any errands, it's important to just pick up, put one foot in front of the other and just put yourself together, because that in itself can literally change everything. I think the next thing is, once I got out, I had all this exciting energy. All of that radiated, and I ended up receiving a lot of it back. So what I ended up doing is meeting two wonderful women in the stores today. Honestly, like I felt like it was the craziest feeling ever. The first woman that I met, I actually met on the doll aisle. We were talking about the dolls, and I met this woman on the doll aisle. And I was like, she started to ask me like if I knew about a certain type of like action figure or doll. And I was explaining to her that no, I was just taking a walk down memory lane. I haven't been, shopping for a doll in quite some time. And I thought, why not just have a look at the toy aisle? And I was like, so yeah, I was like, but what surprised me, and I told her, I was like, I don't really want to be that girl who's like, you know, so churchy that I'm weird. But I was like, there's so much stuff on the aisle that's totally demonic. And I was like, it's hitting me that I don't feel like we grew up with stuff like that. At least I don't feel like it. Maybe we did, and I just was numb to it, but I just don't feel like we grew up with stuff like that. I mean, that's just my feeling about it. So, I mean, let me know what you guys think. If you guys have seen a lot of crazy stuff being sold to the children, and it's a lot of it, I can see it's coming in from the movie industry and then rolling out. So it's a bit weird. But yeah, let me know. If you guys have questions, pop them in the chat. Um, I am going to take any question that you have in the whole wide world. It's your chance to ask me anything. So go ahead and pop your questions in the chat. Alrighty, let's see. Yeah, it is a good point. It is a good point. I think a lot of people, and they're coming in on the other live right now. If you guys haven't had a chance to, hop on over here to YouTube, Victory Life Podcast 7603. Victory Life Podcast 7603. We're doing live Q&A. You guys can ask me any question at all in the whole wide world. You're going to go ahead and pop it over on the chat. Let me know what time it is where you're watching, and let me know where you're watching from. This is Atlanta. It's 10:31 p.m. and let me know. Someone said, how do I address domestic violence from a biblical perspective? Very good question. Let's get to the serious questions already. If you wanna like adjust it, just repost it. But I'll go ahead and start talking, and I'll look in the chat for how you revise it, because thankfully the chat is nice and slow tonight, so you don't have to like try to beat the truncations. But yeah, how would I address it? Here's the first thing. So if we're talking about marriage, it's different from, talking about just someone that's in your family. If you're talking about household violence, and let's say it's a child and it's a parent, well, the Bible says that um, we should not bring the child to anger. We should not like provoke anger in a child. So when it comes to violence between like parent and child, there's a level of respect that and honor that a child gives a parent, but it also goes both ways. It's that a parent should also come toward a child and be able to respect the child, their feelings, their emotions. If a parent steps out of line, they should be able to apologize to the child. So also, I read a couple of books on parenting like last summer. And last summer, some of those books were actually excellent. Um, and what it said in there is that, and this is a book that one of the books I read was like a mixture of practical wisdom and theology. So it took some things that were biblical and it took some things that were practical wisdom. And they also decided that it's okay. Like in that book, they promoted spanking. Now, one thing that they said, and so spanking isn't for everyone. So I'm not saying for you to or not to spank your kids, but everybody holds their household differently. So handle it your way. But if you're going to spank, this is what the author said. He said, if you're going to spank your child, it should not it should not actually be done while you're angry, and it shouldn't be done out of anger. So that's some of the things that he said, and he said it shouldn't happen after a certain age. So he was talking about like, over the age like 11 and 12, after they were like old enough to actually be able to like understand things differently, then you shouldn't even be spanking. So that was some of the advice when it came to the spanking. Um, I'm 50-50 on the spanking thing, because even though I grew up in a household where people were spanked for bad behavior, I never got a spanking, but then I was a perfect little angel. So that's why. No, I didn't get spankings, and I came out just fine. And like, I wasn't that kind of kid though. I wasn't that mischievous. I wasn't mischievous in general. Like I stole something once, but other than that, I wasn't mischievous. So I didn't have a tendency of like toilet papering the house or getting into trouble and getting into things. That wasn't my way. Um, I didn't start doing bad things until I was like late teens. So I really, in that in between phase where a lot of kids kind of misbehave, I was just really sweet. And I went to school and I was quiet at school and I was chatty at home. So I just wasn't like that. So I didn't really need to be spanked. Now, when it comes to, and here's the other thing, I'm a cerebral person. You guys could probably get that. I'm chatty and in my own head and kind of cerebral. My parents also understood that I was like a little bitty brainiac kind of a kid. So they didn't need to spank me, nor was that the right approach for me. They could literally just talk to me, and I understood when I was like 2 and 3 years old. I understood things really well, and I was the kind of kid that if you just said, hey, that disappoints me, you can do better. That's not the best version of yourself. For me, I was horrified by that. So if I heard that, till this day, if my dad's like, I'm disappointed, I'm done. I'm not coming out the house for 6 days. That hurts my feelings to this day. Y'all, it really does. So, like, I don't need that. And that's the kind of kid that I was. So, every kid's different, every parent's different. That's how you handle that. So, you shouldn't be spanking your kids out of anger and those kinds of things, because there it goes from um, God allows us to like chastise those we love. It goes from that to abuse as soon as you're like, oh, I'm angry and I'm hitting you and I'm hurting you. You know, that goes to abuse really fast. Um, I would say this for people like in relationships, Now, when you're in a relationship and there's some sort of domestic violence, um, I would say when you're dating, number one, let's start with single people. When you're dating, everyone should kind of know their family background. They should know if their family has like a history of addiction or a history of domestic violence, physical abuse. Like everybody should just know, like my family, like hordes are my family. We have a family of people that drink. We have a family of people that get divorced. We have a family of people that hit on one another. You know, everyone should just kind of know what kind of history they have in their back pocket in their family, and just be, as they're coming into adulthood, just working through, like, this is the hand that I was dealt, and how do I grow up and be better than this? That's what I think everyone should just know. So if you know you come from a family who has addiction issues, if you know that's in your back pocket, then you already know, okay, that's the issues in the family line. I probably should stay away from that because those things are going to try to follow me. If it's poverty in your family line, then you're going to be moving away from that. Like, oh, I seen that everybody's struggling with poverty. I need to move away from that. So it's an active pursuit to move away from things that are in your family line, and it's a knowing and an awareness that that exists and that it's not good and normal, and that's not God's design for you. So poverty is not God's design for us. Domestic violence is not God's design for us. Addiction is not God's design for us. Um, we have to really know biblically what's God's design, because even though we're faithful and we're in our Bible, we're not called to live in a cardboard box and be poor. So that's one good thing. I think the other thing, so when you're single and you're dating, you have to know what your family is missing. And as you're dating, and know how that affected you. And then be able to work through, if those things, you start seeing signs that those things are coming up in relationships, those are areas you're just going to have to be continuing to work through, hopefully with a Christian counselor. But hopefully those are things that you're continuing to work through, so that if any signs of those things from your family line start to rear their ugly head in your life, that you've got some sort of a mentor or coach to help you work through those things. If you need help with that, of course, you can reach out to me on info@victorylifecorp.com. Now, if you're married, if you're married, if you're married and you're seeing, now, before I get into marriage, one more thing on the singles. I want the single people to be very aware of the signs and symptoms of abuse, so that you can begin to move away from those things if you're in a relationship that is baked up that way. So before you even get married, I'd rather you move away. Now, one thing biblically that will protect you is avoiding fornication. So if you avoid fornicating, then when you get those signs of abuse, you're not going to have all these like crazy levels of attachment where it's not going to be as hard to walk away from something as if you fornicate it and you feel more wrapped up emotionally and spiritually. You are more wrapped up. So one of the things I would say is just avoiding fornication, because it's helpful to unravel something that you know is not God's plan for your life. So when you're in the dating situation, let's say for instance, and I've seen abuse happen both ways. So I want to be very clear about that. Nowadays, there are plenty of women who are abusing men, yelling at them, actually swatting them, hitting them at them, getting really close in their face and yelling, all these things. That's all abusive behavior. So I want to throw that out there. And it's not any less terrible than when a man abuses a woman. It's bad. It should not happen. So be careful when you see. I would say one of the very first things that I notice in an abusive relationship is how a man treats his mom, his sister, and how he speaks about his ex-girlfriend. So these things are like women in his life, important, pivotal women in his life. Maybe he's not raised by his mom, but he's raised by a grandma. Like, same thing. Maybe he's not raised by a mom, but he's raised by an aunt. How is he treating the people that are like the pivotal people in his life? Either the person who gave him life, regardless of all of their issues, how is he still treating that person? Because when you're dating, if we're talking about someone who's out on their own and an adult, and they don't even have to really interact with their family, because you guys know as adults, you don't ever have to go home. You don't ever have to talk to your family again. Once you grow up, you can just move away and that's it. That can happen. I'm not saying that you should, but you can. So if they're an adult, 18 and up, and they're still interacting with those people, and their interaction is where they are pushing, shoving, yelling. When I say yelling, I mean raising a voice. Raising a voice is not a necessary behavior. So raising a voice or calling someone out of their name or being overly controlling, taking phones, looking, just being overly too much. These are things to really be concerned about, even when you see them happening with mom or when it's too much. These are things that be red flags. Start right there. When you see them like actually yelling or behaving violently or using profanity in front of core women in their family, that is a huge red flag. Because if the person who gives you life, if you can just say any old F bomb, S bomb, say a B word to them or in front of them, it indicates a strong lack of respect for that person. It just does. And I know I'm probably going to get it in the chat for saying that, but it's still the truth. It's still the truth. And I've been in a domestic violence situation, and when I have deconstructed all of it, all the way down to the T. So when I went back to the beginning, I can remember the guy was talking to the ex-girlfriend was supposedly still calling while we were on our first few dates. The ex-girlfriend was supposedly crazy and supposedly out of control and wouldn't stop calling even when we were on the first dates. These were red flags. Number one, as an adult woman, I wouldn't even tolerate any of that. As some little sweet kid, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess she must be a little bit off. She's still calling and calling you, you know? But as an adult, they shouldn't be talking to their ex. Duh. They shouldn't be talking to any woman other than you. Duh. Let alone while you're on a date. Double duh. So, and then how they speak about their ex. If they're like, if everything is 100% negative and everything is all their fault, that already tells me that something's off there. So those are the beginning bare bones before someone ever raises their voice and hits you. If they look at a situation and they can never see their own wrongdoing. So if you ask like, oh, why did you and your ex-girlfriend or your ex-boyfriend break up? And it's like, they were bad, 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 bad. And they were this kind of B and this kind of H and da 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 da. When you start hearing a lot of profanity about their ex, you have to also remember they also were still dating their ex at one point. They were dating them. So were they horrible when you asked them out? Were they horrible the first few weeks? Because at some point they went from evidently awesome to evidently horrible. So I don't know who's wrong. So I would say really be careful about that. If you see them actually raise their voice, throw a tantrum, throw things, super red flag. Because people, like, violence tends to escalate from saying something out loud in a room full of people, saying something out loud that's inappropriate, to being one-on-one and saying it directly versus out loud. Like profanity, it'll go from out loud in a room profanity to getting more comfortable with disrespect, which is one-on-one use of the profanity. Then it becomes directed to the other individual. Then it becomes, you are the B, you are the H, you are those things. Those are levels actually. Then before you know it, there becomes intimidation, where they're like actually scaring you even though they don't leave a mark. That could be through frequent flooded texts, through paragraphs and pages when you're trying to break up. This could be like in your face, like just yelling at the top of their lungs too close to your face in your personal space. Personal space is like, dance circle inside your personal space. If you were to give a hug, if they could get in there, that's personal space. So if they're yelling at you all in your personal space, that is those are the last few seconds before someone strikes you. So I would say be mindful of that. If they've done that a bunch of times, the striking is coming, even if it takes 5 years. And that's been my experience. It may take 5 years, but the striking eventually will show up. If you've seen them throw things already, put holes in a wall, use profanity out loud in group dynamics, use profanity one on one. If they start using profanity directed directly at you, because that's what they'll say. They'll say, "Oh, I was just saying the word B. I was just saying the word F." It goes from them just saying it to them saying it literally to you. Um, and then if they are ever, even if they don't use profanity, but they ever like say things that, if they start picking at things that you know are your insecurities. So if you feel like body image or body weight, being very lean or being overweight, if you feel like you need help with your skin or if you need help with your style, if they begin to pick at you, not from a place of like, hey, I bought you something, let's like look nice together and go out on a date. That's a healthy way of doing something. Not like, hey, I really want to go on a hike, let's go hike together. That's like a healthy way of doing something. But instead, if they're like pinching your fat or they're pointing or saying something derogatory or like making fun of you, maybe they start off with making fun of you, like roasting you in public in a group. It may start with roasting you in public and then later on become one on one. Are you sure you're going to eat that, and pinching on you and those kinds of things? That's an escalation, actually. A lot of people won't see it that way, but if you look at it, before they made it as a joke, a funny, and then it goes from a funny to something actually serious, and it goes from a group dynamic to one on one, and then it actually becomes in your face like, you're to this, you're not good enough. And then it becomes a you're not good enough, or actually profanity and mixing those things up. It goes to that place literally before they ever hit. So by the time they get ready to actually put hands on you, your self esteem is already messed up. So now, whatever they spoke over you, biblically, you didn't have to receive it. You could have actually just left, but you didn't have to receive it. Those are actually word curses spoken over you. That's what the Bible would say. If someone is calling you out of your name or giving you and declaring something about you that's not God's truth for you, even if it's that you're overweight or you're extremely lean, you know, they don't need to declare anything. You can just work on your fitness and remind yourself that I'm working toward being more and more like Jesus every day. I'm working toward taking care of my temple each and every day. They don't need to say anything, and you don't need to receive a negative word from them. So those are all the things like I would kind of say are kind of the beginning things. Then you'll see things before someone ever hits you, you're going to see control. It's unfortunate I know way too much about domestic violence. That says a lot about me, doesn't it? That says a lot about me. They're like, she could write a book on domestic violence. Turns out I could. The other thing is, I feel like the control is the next piece. And a lot of people who come from a home where, let's say you came from a home and you didn't get proper love and affection growing up, you may take that a gentleman who is jealous, you may take the jealousy as a positive thing, but some parts of jealousy can be somewhat natural, and there's always a crossover. There's always a crossover. So when it goes from you are inciting the jealousy, maybe you're not dressed modestly, you're getting a lot of attention, and then he's like, hey, that's kind of like incited jealousy, which is not really fair to him. So that's not really his fault. But it becomes where like something that you're not inciting, and then something happens. It's not really you, but it's just situational. And then they're starting to like, how do I describe it? Let's say social media tends to be kind of messy. That tends to be kind of messy when a person's jealous and you're dating. So social media, someone's sending you something on social media, you're in a relationship, you haven't said anything back or forward for them, and they're irate and they're jealous, and they're like, oh, block this person, block that person, just delete them. At a certain point, it's like if you start feeling like a lot of control and it's even one-sided control where they're not willing to block and they're not willing to remove and they're not willing to like isolate, but they want you to, the one-sidedness is I think what's more of telling. I also think when they're trying to isolate you from close family and friends, these are all the things that happen before someone puts hands on you. So if you have two or three good friends and he wants to pull you away from, and that happens with women against men too. They do the same thing. Like you got your boys and they're like, you can never spend time with your boys ever. Like, really? Never? So they'll start to separate you from close family and close friends because this is the isolation first, and then it becomes the physical actions against you. But they've got to isolate you first so that if they take physical actions, that you're isolated, and when you're bruised up, no one's going to notice or no one's going to complain because they don't see you every day, or or you're covering it up with makeup or whatever. So those are kind of the things to watch out for. If you see that they have like real crazy anger towards your pets, and let's say your pets aren't doing anything, that's also a really big red flag, because if they are just violent toward an innocent anything, an animal, a child, those are not good signs. Out in public, if you know, like with men, if they're overly aggressive and they tend to get into street fights a lot, that is a very bad sign, because this is what Galatians chapter 5 will say. These are works of the flesh: anger, dissensions, divisions, like this rage that a person might have in public. While when we're young women, we might be like looking for some thug boy, that doesn't last very long, because that anger that we see on the outside turns toward us. That anger is still that same anger. So yeah, I mean, those are some of the things. And obviously, if they have like a violent temper, it's going to come out with losing jobs all the time, constantly fighting and bickering with people, having friends come and go all the time, getting thrown out of nightclubs, etc. If you're in the world and at nightclubs and all that stuff, then getting thrown out of nightclubs. All those things are characteristic. If you notice that they get more like that when they drink, then it's probably that they have, most likely what's going to come up is abusive and addiction later as an official issue. So if they drink and then you see these signs, but when they don't drink, they're really lovely. That means the addiction brings on violence. It will eventually, it may take 5 years, but eventually that's usually what happens if they don't cut all of it out. So, yeah, so that's that. Now, when it comes into, if you're in a relationship that's easier, dating, just get up and leave. Get up and leave. That means get up and leave. It means get up and move out. It means break a lease. It means get bad credit. It means do what you need to do to get up and leave. And I know I know that sounds like a heavy thing to say, but I'm one of those people who's on the other side of domestic violence. I would say do whatever you need to do to get out of there. Like break your lease, ruin your credit, move home. If you need to just leave and pay everything, leave, go home and pay everything. But get out of there, because especially if you don't even have kids yet, then it's easy to unravel that by just leaving. But if you stay in it and then you produce a baby, now you have another level of connectivity with someone who's not healthy, and that's going to be the father or the mother of your child. That gets really messy, y'all, because you can't get rid of them after you have the baby. You're going to be stuck with them. So that's it. So there's that. Now, if you're married, the Bible talks about reasons for biblical divorce. One of which is it says that you're called to peace. It says that it doesn't actually say specifically for domestic violence that you can divorce or you should divorce. I do always say, pray for your partner, all those kinds of things, and look for like the areas of your life where you might be triggering as well. Like if you're doing something that you obviously know is triggering, if you're half dressed, getting attention, they're going nuts, don't be half dressed. That helps. That helps. Not to say abuse would be anyone's fault, right? But I would say for married people, it talks about in the Bible that you're called to peace. So you don't want to be a person who is feeling like you're trapped in the marriage when you are being abused, because remember the male and female roles in the Bible? The Bible says that the woman is to be respectful of the husband, and it says that the husband should be understanding of the wife. And so those things go hand in hand. The woman should submit herself to the husband, but the husband is supposed to submit himself to Christ. So when those things aren't together, you're going to find a husband who may not be acting lovingly, who might actually hit the woman. For the woman, if she's not being submissive, she might disrespect or emasculate the man, which incites, anger in him. His anger and his flesh will start to wheel up too. So I would say if you're married, there's counseling, and then at a certain point, if you're in a dangerous situation, God has not. I don't believe God's called you to danger. I don't believe that. That's a perfectly good reason to leave a marriage, or at least give it some space while you guys get separate help. If it's healed and people have signed off on it, then maybe you can try again. But at the end of the day, having been through it, yeah, as soon as I see anybody who's got an issue with anger or trouble with controlling their flesh, I'm just out of there. I'm just out of there. I don't, it's one of those things. I don't have to be the direct recipient of it. I could just see it in like generically, and I can pick someone who's got the traits of an abuser. I can pick that and walk away on first through third date. If I see them during the date on the phone behaving that way with someone else, with anger, rage, with anyone, not even directed at me, I'm done. So I don't even play that game. I don't even play that game. I don't even need to know what's behind door number two. So hopefully that helps. From a biblical perspective, I don't believe you're required to stay in a marriage that is abusive. So I don't even play with that. I don't, because our lives, God has not called us to be in an abusive marriage. The husband is supposed to be understanding. The wife is supposed to be submissive and respectful, and the husband should be following Christ. And Christ would not be, looking for you to be hurt in any kind of way. So, but yeah, I mean, at that note, marriage is in trouble. I'm always a person who's like, even for infidelity, it's not a popular opinion, but for infidelity, even, I always say, you know, pray for your partner, you know, pray against the works of the enemy, because there is a real devil breaking up marriages. Pray as a couple, and see if you can get back on track, even if there's infidelity. I'm a big believer that it's better to try to work that out than it is for you to walk away, try to restart. It is very messy. It's very messy to restart when, imagine you break up from a marriage where there's infidelity and maybe someone would repent. Imagine if you leave that person and now you're dating and all these people are cheating too. And now you're not even married, and now half your money is gone. You're living in a small apartment and they're all cheating. Like, imagine all that. So for the purpose of marriage, I think that infidelity should be one of those things that if someone comes with a heart of repentance, I think it's worthwhile to pray about that, keep that marriage, and give it a second shot. I always say that. Always, always. So I know that's unpopular, and I don't care. I don't care what you think. Talk to the people who've been out here single after their divorces and see, has it not happened 3 or 4 more times after that? And they don't even have the benefit of marriage. So, yeah. Let's see. That's a great point. Let's see what you guys are talking about. All right, so somebody else has got a question. Next question. I need help. So I've liked this guy for about 1.5 years now, and I still haven't worked up the courage to actually talk to him for the first time. What do I do? That's a good question. Um, I think it's your job to like smile and speak to him. I don't think you need to do much more than that. For instance, most of the time, If I go up to someone and I just strike a conversation with them, if I'm warm and friendly and I smile, that's usually enough for them to get the hint, and then they will ask for the phone number and they will ask for the date, if that makes any sense. I generally don't have to do much more than strike up some nonsense chit chat, smile and be warm. So remember, what guys are looking for is, guys don't want to be rejected. That's broadly across every race, across every size. They don't like rejection. So if you give the energy that you're warm and interested and inviting, that's the sign that they're looking for. So the question for you really is, in your day to day, do you when you get on the phone with your friends, do you, because it's something that I remember from like working at a call center a long time ago, they would like give us a little mirror, and then as we talked and spoke on the phone, they would say, when you're on the phone with the customer, be sure to look in the mirror and make sure that you're smiling as you're speaking to the customer. And the idea of that is, you're training yourself to smile as you speak to them, because they can hear the smile in your voice. And that is true, actually. That's actually true. So there's a lot of nonverbal stuff that we have to make sure that we're giving off, and it's not necessarily natural for every woman. For me, it's natural, but it's not natural for every woman. Some women have to work at their warmness and their friendliness. Some people will be like, oh no, I have RBF, right? Some people will say that, but you have to work against that, because it's not the prettiest girl in the room that gets the guy. It's the girl who's warm and friendly, humorous, funny, relaxed, laid back, easygoing. The one that's least threatening is the one the guy approaches. So there could be three girls, and this has happened to me a lot. And in my social circle, I'm not the prettiest girl, just FYI. And that's nothing against me. I'm a cute girl. But in my social circle, they're like models. I'm in Atlanta. These people like are Hollywood looking. Like they look like some people off of TV. So with these girls who look like they're off of TV, and then I'm standing next to these girls, how do you think it is for me trying to get a date and I'm next to these women who look like they're from Hollywood? You would think the Hollywood women would win every time. But what's the difference between me and them? The Hollywood women are all, very like, I can't smile, I can't move, I can't eat. And I'm over here throwing back the wings and wearing like a Batman t-shirt. I'm smiling and giggling and laughing. They're like, wait, she's got the Batman t-shirt on. She's laughing and funny and warm. Let me say how they just want to be my friend. They start off just wanting to be my friend. I'm easy to talk to. I'm joking with them. So that starts the dialogue. All you really need is to get them to like feel comfortable in the dialogue, and they will do the rest if they're interested. So your job is practice with friends, with your girlfriends even. Mirror up as you're on the cell phone and talking to your girlfriends. You've got to build a muscle towards warmth and friendliness. That muscle is what's going to help guys look at you as less risky for rejection. You have to build that. If you don't normally have like a smiley face, then you build that. Because if your face is frowny, they aren't coming. They're not, because they don't want to get rejected. And it has really not much to do with how pretty or how not pretty. It has everything to do with, sometimes they think that they're going to get rejected. Now, if you feel like, and you have to be honest with yourself, like I was just honest. I was like, okay, where I live. Now, if I go to like a little country town, I might be the prettiest thing. But where I live, I'm not. There's a lot of competition. I'm not the prettiest thing. I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm somewhere in the middle. So what does that mean? It means when I get up to go out the house, I take time to put myself together. So do that. Like take time to put yourself together. Don't be caught out like on the street, like wrinkled, disheveled, haven't put yourself together to look neat. Because when you look neat, A, you make more money. But when you look neat, B, you get more respect. When you look neat, sometimes people give you stuff free. I mean, they give you free stuff. But when you look neat, you meet more people. And when you look warm and smile, like I met two women today that totally changed my day. Why? Because I put myself together and I was warm and friendly. that makes people gravitate toward you. So people literally want to like by the end of my first conversation, the lady was like, "Can I have a hug?" And we hugged in the middle of the store. I can't make it up. And this is the same girl who couldn't get out of bed this morning. Right? Like I had no plans on going live. I'm like, I'm also not up for going live. If I'm not feeling my best chipper self, then forget all that. I'll just try to get through the day. But look, by the end of the day, I'm fine. So what I'm saying is, all of the stuff collectively matters. So how you're perceived is what you're working on. It's not what's reality. You might be beautiful, smart, and I'm sure you are all these beautiful things. It's about creating the perception in order to allow that perception to attract, for other people to be attracted by it. So putting yourself together, looking your best, staying like moving around, doing your thing, all that's part of the picture of building your confidence. And I tell you, if you don't get the guy, then you don't get the guy. Remember, there's more fish in the sea. Like there's someone else out there who will like you exactly where you are. So that's my thing. It'd be good to know your age just so that I could help you more. Just if I know that you're 15 versus, 35 versus 55, it's kind of like there are some more tips there depending on your age. But for someone who's like relatively young, I'm assuming, just be woman friendly, put your appearance, make sure you're put together, because people, that's going to help boost you. It's, how the algorithms for YouTube get boosted based on certain things. The algorithm for other social media gets boosted based on certain things. Like we can boost our algorithm with our likability by doing some basic things right consistently. You know, going for walks or some kind of gym. These are things that boost our algorithm amongst your peers, because I can guarantee you, if you are 18 to 25, nobody's taking all their like fitness seriously. They're just waking up, going to bars, doing all this crazy stuff. If you're the one who's taking your fitness seriously, you're going to immediately be set apart in the group as healthy and ready for a relationship, because you're just going to have that youth and that youth, radiating. Um let's see what you guys are saying over here. And here's what I say. This is an interesting one. Um, Someone's like, figure out what he likes and use it to spark it off. I'm going to say be careful with that, because here's the reality. Once you like are very, very, very good at psychology, you can use that to manipulate someone and like manipulate your way into the door, right? But at the end of the day, can you keep that person? And do you really want that person who didn't want you? Does that make sense? So yes, there are ways of manipulating your way in the door. Those are like not things that I'm going to talk about because I don't think it's productive. But ultimately, what you want is you want a long lasting, loving relationship that can become a marriage. And even if you like knock the door down with all these like weird little things, like, do you really want that person who you had to like work all that hard for? Like, if they don't want you like that, if it's not the right combination, you want someone who wants you the way you want them. And maybe that's, if it's that hard, then it's really not your person. Like it should come together without all this manipulation thing, I would say. I think the basic things that I'm saying are things that like I don't have a man and I get up and I do these things for myself kind of stuff. And this makes me more approachable and likable, but I'm also doing it for myself. Keep in mind, today I was having like kind of a down day. And what did I do? And there's no man around, right? The first thing I did was I need to put myself together and make sure that I'm the best version of myself at home. Like that's what I did. And when I did that, I was immediately out of my little funk. I was out of it. Does that make sense? So that version of myself is the same version of myself that was carried out the door, and people could receive that and love that version of me. So, yeah, hopefully that helps. Um, I'm kind of like, put it this way, I'm on the team. If you just can't attract them, like, you know, doing the basic things, the fundamental foundation things, if you can't attract them, then it's okay. You're going to attract someone else. It's better to kind of just, rather than manipulate your way in, I'd rather say don't do that and just let it fall off. Like, let it fall off, and then just kind of wait for the one who is like, has that interest. And now you know that person didn't have it, because otherwise you're going to be putting a lot of effort. And I just don't think for women that that's what's up. I think for women, you know, I don't think that's what God wants for us to do. I'll just be honest with you. I don't think God wants us to be like working ourselves all the way up and like fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting for this person who may or may not want us. I don't think God wants that. I think there's some wisdom in putting ourselves together and putting the best version of ourselves out, and then seeing if that person is interested by just being warm, because we know we like them anyway, right? So just being warm, and then see if they engage on that level. If they disengage or they never engage, then it's just not your person, and there's got to be someone else who's going to receive that, you know? So I would just say the sooner you know that they're disengaged or that they never engaged, that's actually still a win, because even if they don't latch on or show interest, then you just move on. And then you're not spending unnecessary time trying for someone who you're not their pick. And so here's the risk. I say that because of this. I think a lot of women date people for too long. In general, they date people for years and years and years. And do you know why that happens? It's because they like the guy more than the guy likes them. That's what's up. So if you start off in the beginning as the woman working so hard to like, I gotta figure out what I gotta do to make him like me. I gotta figure this out. I gotta figure that out. If you're the woman and you're working that hard to try to get the guy to like you, what happens is, I mean, you become easy bait. And if this is a worldly guy who's not a Christian guy, who doesn't, when I say not a Christian guy, I mean not doesn't have a surrendered life to Christ. Let me be honest. If you're dealing with a guy who doesn't have a surrendered life to Christ, you've just put yourself on like a hook as a little piece of like bait for the next shark. So if you really try too hard for someone who doesn't really initially easily move toward you, then you've baited someone, and if they don't have the like Christ-like mindset, they're going to receive you but for a time, if that makes any sense. And those are not the guys you actually want. You don't want to grab hold of and then stay with the guy who's like, meh, maybe. She's okay. She's maybe. Because that's the conversations that happen when we're not around. When you have a guy that keeps you for 3 and 5 and 7 years, when you've got the 3, 5, 7 guy, when that guy is asked by his friends, hey, what's up with your girl? Like, you guys getting serious? You guys gonna get married? What that guy typically says is, I don't know. I don't know. He immediately starts doing that. Why? Because you're not really hit. You're not really it. So that only happens when we're trying to force something that's not for us. So don't try to force it. Put yourself out there in terms of like, be smiley, be friendly, be pretty, do your best to like go for your walks and do your gym and be at your personal best. But you're doing that for yourself anyway. He can see it. Either he loves it and he latches, or he doesn't love it, and it's fine. You didn't waste your time. But my thought is, don't waste your time on people who are not seeking to like wife you up, if that makes any sense. If they're not really in the mindset to wife you up, or they're not really looking to slow down with you, then that's not the one you want to be working all that hard for. Save all that energy for when you're married. All this work that we're doing when we're single, save all of that energy for when you're married, and then use all of that to keep the marriage strong. Let's see. Um, Ooh, okay, Alex. I remember. I feel like I remember you from a while back, and I almost think that. Let me know. Pop it in the chat if you came in from like a different social media because I don't think you were originally from YouTube. Let me know if you came from another social media. I almost think I remember you from way back. Um, dun, dun, dun. Let's see. Okay, someone says, I know my mom justified her reasoning for being in a domestic violence situation as her reason for cheating. My dad eventually divorced her. Um, hey, Greg, thanks for joining. Southern California in the house. Um, Someone says, do you know how hard it is for a man to approach a woman? I think it depends on the man, to be honest with you. I mean, I meet guys all the time. And I think I wish this was harder for you. Uh, but yeah, no, I think it depends on the guy. I think for some guys, it's not hard at all. And I think for some guys, it is kind of their worst nightmare having to do this part. But I encourage you guys to keep going out and keep approaching women. Don't give up just because you get turned down. I know it's tough, but that's your job to initiate everything. So keep approaching women. Don't give up. And I know it's hard, and I know it's hard. Um, yeah, even Aladdin is like, it should be genuine, though, not manipulative. I agree. Let's see. She has a problem doing that. Let me see. I think I need to go backwards and start again. Okay. Somebody said men don't cheat. I beg to differ. That's funny. Okay, they're talking about polygamy. Oh my gosh, let's talk about polygamy really quick. See, so Aladdin, we don't know all the details. You said she's got a problem coming up to the guy talking to him. So it's like you're saying it's you got to come up with something to talk about. I would say I don't know the situation because like if they work together, then that makes it you got to figure out what's the common thread. So we don't know the scenario. We don't know if this is like somebody who lives down the street. We don't know if it's like somebody who's at the office. We don't know if this is a friend from a friend. We don't know if she just sees him. She works at a coffee shop and he's a patron. Like we don't know the details. We don't know how much time they typically have when she bumps into him. We don't know how frequently she bumps into him. We don't know like in what setting they normally meet. We don't know any of that. So we need to know a lot of details before we can give her like the specifics. But yeah, let's get more details. Meanwhile, we'll talk about polygamy. um, let's see. Okay, hold on. I see. Tell us how you come back to Jesus. How do you come back to Jesus? It's simple. Just come back. So when you come back to Jesus, I don't want you to focus on your sin per se the minute you come back to Jesus. I want you to come back to Jesus and focus on like just your secret time with him, reading your Bible and renewing your mind with the word of God. You know, I want you to focus just on Jesus when you first come back. Don't focus immediately on your sin because in our like limited brains, when you're coming out of sin, one of two things is going to likely happen in your head. Either you're going to be trying to tell yourself that all of your current sin is okay. It's all okay and God's okay with it because his grace covers all of it. Or you're going to be like the devil is going to be condemning you, making you say like God doesn't love you anymore. You can't be redeemed. And he's like Satan's going to have you bashing yourself. So instead of like allowing yourself to think about the sin, don't even think about all the sin. Like, don't just ignore that part for the beginning and just come back to Jesus, and be reading your Bible. If you can go to a local church, if you have a Bible believing church that you can go to, and that way you can find fellowship with other believers. If you can't find a local church to have fellowship, because when you start coming back to God, it is hard. In that, when you're leaving the world and you're coming to God, there's a part of you that's tethered in the world, and there's a part of you that's yearning, and the there's a part of you that's yearning for that union with God. But that part of you that's still hanging out in the world, that part of you can be in a real struggle. So, and that's the part of you that wants you to run away from God. That's the part of you where people are there in the world discouraging your Christian walk. They're discouraging your relationship with Jesus. They think that you're weird. That's the part of you. And you almost, if you could start with just focusing on Jesus and reading your word, those are actually attacks from the enemy. If you could focus on that, God will be building you up against those attacks, and he will help you know when it's time to separate and just separate from them. And separating from your old world doesn't have to be super toxic. Like, you don't have to like call your friends one by one and be like, it's over. You don't have to do that. But what you can do instead is you can just like, I mean, the things that I did is I didn't call I had a bunch of friends. So I didn't call like the 200 people in my social circle. I called like one or two people and said, hey, I'm doing some inner work right now. I'm going to take some time away. So I'm going to be out of touch for a few months while I do some inner work, but I'll be back in touch with you in due time. Just let me have some time. I need to do some work on myself. And I was very like non-specific about it. So, um, you don't have to get into your Christian walk with these people and immediately. You can just say, hey, I don't want you to worry. I need to take a little time for myself. I'm doing some inner work and some inner healing. And you separate yourself. You know, I think it's important to separate yourself from people that have you in bad habits, old nature, lifestyle that's not compatible with where God's taking your heart. Even if it's for a season, to try to get your bearings and try to grow in closeness and relationship to God. So the most important thing you could do is get in your Bible, get in your word. If you can find a church, if you have a church that you feel safe and comfortable going to, that's a Bible believing church, getting in there, going to not just the Sunday church, but to small groups or something where you can build some community, because that's the part that for me, I struggle with the most. AI Bible Testament knows about that struggle. Like, I know him from my old inner circle groups. So like, we need people, we need believers in our inner circle that can encourage us when we're struggling. So that's what I would say. So I just think you want that. I think you want that more than anything, is to just be sure that um, you're in your secret place. Another thing people can do is like prayer and fasting and prayer. So you don't have to like starve yourself for like weeks and weeks on end. I'm not saying that, but you can even just do intermittent fasting, fast for a few hours, and read your word and pray during that time. And when you break your fast, you break your fast, and you just not like gorging on every yummy thing, but kind of ease your way back in. So even if you just did like, a 16-hour fast or something easy, like something, I'm not gonna say it's easy because it may not be easy for everybody, but even if you did like a 16-hour fast and during that time you made sure that you read the word and you prayed, like that's a big deal, because a lot of people don't read their word and don't pray, but that will help you to draw near God. And the Bible says if you draw near God, he'll draw near you too. So I would say that. So coming back to Jesus, try not to focus on the sin, focus on the word, and focus on the relationship with God. And as you're led, you'll know that you're feeling like different. And that's how I would describe it. You're feeling less compatibility with the world. That's how you're going to feel less compatible with that. Do as God leads you. God will lead you. Like in some circumstances, God will just have you cut some stuff off. And if He leads you to just cut some things off, behaviors, activities, places you go, people you hang out with, if He has you hard cut it off, then just cut it off, Give that a shot. Even if you think, oh man, I can't quit that. If God's leading you to just do a hard cut, then just cut it off. And then let Him sustain you because He will. And don't worry about these like little hiccups that happen along your Christian walk. If you're trying to get out of your old world and you find yourself having these bumps in the road, that's not like an insane thought. If you have a bump in the road and you backslide back into some old behaviors, then that can happen sometimes, and just repent and go run back to God again. Like, as long as you're not like Adam, in the garden trying to run away from God and hide, you just find yourself running back to God. If you make a mistake, you fall, you speak to God about it, pray about it. If you need to do like a little fast, 12 or 16-hour fast, you do that. But those are the kinds of things you can do to kind of like strengthen your relationship and your walk with God. Um, Somebody said, why would someone even want a relationship when the end is near? Good point. Good point. Here's one thing. We don't know that day or the hour exactly. And I would also say that we don't know how God might use a relationship, even if there was 1 year left till end of time. If God's provided you with a kingdom spouse and He wants to leverage that relationship to bring other people to the faith, He will do interesting things even at the end of time. You never know. So I wouldn't want to limit God. I wouldn't want to limit Him. He may do something that may seem like God does things at an accelerated pace and supernaturally. So like even when I got saved, I was like learning about God at a supernatural pace, and people were like stunned because I was like came out of like not even having a dusty Bible in my house. And people were stunned. I was like learning, but it was God was supernaturally doing things and growing me so fast. So, yeah. So it may be like, oh, maybe we're a year away from the end of time, and guess what? God will take a year and make it like 1,000 just in that 1 year. So He could do all kinds of things in a short amount of time. Um, is it wrong to be in church looking at women when worshiping? Interesting question. I think it makes you a man. I mean, what's important is here. I would say this. Um, I would say this for the woman. So, like for the woman, there are certain outfits I might wear. Pardon me, I might wear to dinner, but I might not wear to church. Like if something is, form fitting, I might wear that to dinner, but that's just me. I'm not telling you guys how to dress. God might still need to work on me in that area. But yeah, I might wear like a fitted dress to dinner, but that doesn't mean I wear the same fitted dress to church, right? So, I mean, if you're getting distracted by the women because they're, intentionally popping out of everything, then that might say more about them than it might say about you. If it's that they aren't like inappropriately dressed, um, the reality is you're a man. I don't expect you to not have eyes. And so when I've gone to church, I don't expect the guys to not look. In fact, I've got hit on plenty of times at church. So, I mean, I would just say, I don't expect guys to show up at church and suddenly, as soon as you walk into that, you know, inside of that building, like suddenly your eyes just disappear. And I don't expect that. But I would just say try to be respectful. And when everybody's in prayer, try to be in prayer, even if it's like a little distracting. Try to be in prayer. You're probably one of the lucky ones to go to a church where there's lots of beautiful women. So I don't think it's not horrible, but try to be in prayer when you're at church. And then here's where I may differ. Some people are like, you know, focus only on church at church. No, once church is done, if there's someone there, I mean, say hello. I think there's something about I don't know. It's hard for me to put into words. There's something about church. People want the peace of being in church and not really making it into a nightclub. I know I do say that, but at the end of the day, if that's your person, I mean, do you want to miss out on them? So I would just say, figure out if there's like volunteer events and things that you guys can be doing out in the community through your church that puts you in position to maybe you're like feeding the homeless, maybe you're like, doing something in the community that you happen to be doing um, together in fellowship with other like minded believers. And if it gives you a chance to like bond with them and chit chat with them and get to know them, that's actually the best time to do some of that. Um, I also say church conferences are a good place to do some of that. And don't try to stick to your own church. Like go to like in your region if there's different churches within your region that are having church conferences. Just kind of get around and go to them. And that way, if you actually introduce yourself to someone and it doesn't work out, then they're like two churches away from you, which is not like your home. Um, it's what's tough about it is if you pursue dating with someone in the church and then you decide that it's not your cup of tea, that gets kind of tough. And it also gets tough if you move from one lady to the next in the same church. That gets a little awkward as well. So, I mean, you have to pace yourself. So, if it's, you also have to know yourself. I mean, in general, I don't do the like the friendship vibes thing. I generally don't say, "Oh, get to know someone as friends," and then blah 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 blah. Generally, I don't recommend that for anything. But I will say, if you're talking about being in church, because it's muy complicado. Church is like a weird situation. Um, Nobody wants to look up at church like and then have an ex-boyfriend and an ex-boyfriend and an ex-boyfriend or an ex-girlfriend. Nobody wants that. So in church, you're going to have to really proceed with caution, whether it's a big one or a small one. I went to a big one and I could see how messy that could get there. So I can't even imagine if it's a small church. Um, I would say proceed with caution. And when you're in a church setting, I think it's probably best to just start off just being friends and that's it. Not any dating because if you because you're trying to kind of think about get to know them and in your head think about the compatibility level before you even ask them out. Like by the time if it's the same church and it's a small even if it's a big church, you know, I'm not saying you have to stick with them if it doesn't work out, but isn't that awkward if it doesn't work out and then you have to see them every Sunday? Then it gets awkward, especially they move on and they're married and they got their husband or wife or their boyfriend with them in church. Uh, so, caution. I mean, yeah, caution. I mean, caution. At the same rate, believers need to meet believers in settings where believers go. I say that at the same, thing. So, the easiest thing to do is to go to some conferences and stuff and go to conferences that are like more regional so that you're not actually dating someone at the same exact church as you. That's the easiest is to find someone who goes to church but not your church. That's the easiest. So those conference fees are very well worth it. Do that. Do that first and before like unless there's someone in church that you're already falling in love with or you think she's the one. If you think she's the one, then proceed cautiously. Because if it doesn't work out, then it could get real awkward to continue going to church there for you or for her. It just might get awkward, and you don't want that either. So I don't know what to tell you. It's kind of messy. It's kind of difficult. I mean, I haven't dated anybody in my church, so you know, I haven't. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't either. I'm not saying I wouldn't, but it could get awkward. I would probably I could, but the guys from church who asked me out, I said no to all of them. So I never did. I never dated any of them. So it could get messy. It could get messy. Um, but I'm not a person who thinks it's a bad idea to, if you find someone at church, go forth and like take it seriously. Don't be casually dating at church. It's like you're dating for the courting process at church, you know? And possibly it's good in a way that you could talk to the pastor and, start doing like some sort of like Christian counseling with the church people rather than just dating casually and seeing where it goes kind of stuff. Like that could get messy. But yeah, just start off as friends and see if you can perceive whether you could see that person in your life long before you ask them out. Only because it gets messy and that's your church home and that's her church home and you don't want it to get awkward for either of you. Um, sin must be sin must exist. It's a dual nature of righteousness or good, whatever you want to call it. I don't know how I feel about that. Somebody said definitely need a lot of soul healing in my life. I hear you. Would I rather gain muscle or gain what? I don't know what that is. I like having muscle though. Muscle sounds good to me. Um, let's see. Yeah, hiccup. I hope they do pray for me. I'll take some prayers. Let's see. Ooh, somebody said Charlie Kirk's view on marriage and God was so good. That's the man every man should be. I can amen you on that. I really love that he said, you know, he encouraged young people to get married young. And I so support that because I can just tell you how much harder it is when we just let the time kind of get away from us. I can tell you it gets a lot harder. Um, Give me 1 second. I did plug my phone in. 1 sec here. I have this habit of not plugging in phones and then going live. All right. Yeah, I really, really, really support the idea of young people like, and I don't know why there's such a campaign against young people just settling down. I don't know why that's the case, but I like the idea of young people finding their person, settling down, and getting married. From my hometown, everybody who got married right out of high school stayed married, pretty much. It's the ones like me and others, people who got married later. Those people struggle a lot more staying married. Their divorce rates are way higher. But everybody that got married 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, all of them are still married. So that says something right there. So when people are trying to like say, "Oh, you're too young, you don't know." No, you don't know, and that's a good thing. I think actually what's so hard about marriage is that we allow ourselves to get out here and grow up the worldly way, and then it's a toxic way, and we learn all these bad habits, and we have these problematic things that start rearing their ugly head. And then when we get married, we're trying to be married, and we have all these things like clawing at us from our, you know, the unrighteous behaviors that we took part in as adults. That's it claws at the marriage. It claws at us. So, and God never designed us to do that or have those things. So it's just so much nicer when people are so sweet and innocent and they literally know nothing and they haven't found themselves fully. That is the time. Yes, that is the time to get married because it's easier to become one when you're still developing and finding yourself and you can grow into one. So yeah, I think people should absolutely get married young, super young. That's what I believe. But to each their own. But I think getting married later means you're more stuck in your ways. I mean, imagine like if your wife likes, cotton sheets and you like silk sheets, that right there is a whole thing when you've gotten used to cotton sheets. I mean, we could make it about sheets, but like there's one of those for every aspect of your life, believe it or not. Like one person likes an open door household where like people freely just walk in the door from the street. Like all these different friends and family just don't even knock, they just walk in. Other people are like, no, we need to schedule our guests. We shouldn't just have random guests show up and just walk in our house. By the time you are a grown adult, there's so many things that you've learned that are your like habits that I mean, it's much more different. I'm not impossible, but it's definitely different to try to date in that aspect. Um, am I married? Nope, not married. Um, but you know what? I'll be super clear. I'm not married and I'm not dating and I'm not even looking to date. Like I will say that. Like when I say not looking to date, it needs to come from God. It literally at this point it has to come from God. If it's not from God, I don't want it. That's what's up with me. I've dated enough. If it's not from God, I don't want it. So, let's see. Um, is long distance relationships too hard for people who live in different states? I say no. One person in Georgia, another person in Southern California. Nope, I don't think so at all. What it is this: when you live when you have a long distance relationship, people got to have money. Let's be honest. You can't be broke and have a long distance relationship. I mean, I don't know how well that works, but if you're going to be long distance, you got to have money. It's that simple. Because realistically speaking, are you going to get married off of FaceTime and talking on the phone and email exchanges? Probably not. So are you going to want to see each other at least a few times before you decide to like, get married? Probably so. So you're not going to predetermine, well, 3 visits and then we get married. No, you need to kind of like feel it out. If it's 3, if it's 6, if it's 10, if it's 15. So I honestly think that long distance is perfectly fine. Actually, it keeps you from hopping in the bed together, is what it does. But long distance is fine. But I think you pretty much are going to have money. So if you're wanting to do long distance and you don't have the money to like fly back and forth, I don't know if in 2025 people are up for that level of courting, because that's a level of courting that's more of the biblical version of it. I don't know that in 2025 people are going to be up for that. Um, so you're going to have to meet each other in person because you're going to risk not being physically attracted if you're trying to like just FaceTime your way to the aisle, you know? Yeah. Um, am I in Houston? No, I'm in Atlanta. Um, would it be difficult to date someone who does not want to fellowship at your church but wants to stay at their church? Um, it depends. Um, I think to date, I don't think these things are really a big deal. They don't want a fellowship at your church. Let me think about this. Um, hmm. You're talking about somebody who says they don't want a fellowship at your church. This is less about the church thing, and it's more about the I don't wanna. I'm more concerned with the someone saying I don't want to do something that seems easy enough to do. So that's giving like a difficult personality is what it's giving, if that makes any sense. That's what I feel like it's giving. I feel like for some reason, this is no longer about church and fellowship. It's more about the personality showing up. It's difficult. And I'm more concerned about that difficult personality than I am about this, oh, I don't want to fellowship at your church. Like, why not? Like, because at the end of the day, maybe as a couple, you guys are trying to figure out what church you're going to select for the future. So you need to kind of, you know, go to this church with this person, go to that church with that person. Maybe you got to do a little bit of that. So I think it'd be wise to probably go to both. Now, here's the difference. Here are the core questions. I dated someone who was a Christian, and this came up, and I realized we were not at all compatible. Um, so this is an interesting one. So I was teaching dance class at the time, and I'm dating this Christian person. And I'm like, oh, you should just come watch my dance class while I teach. Come, while you're in town or hanging out, come watch while I teach. And, just make yourself comfortable over there because I needed to go to work. Okay. So, so I was going to go teach. And I was like, oh, by the way, please don't freak out because we pray before and after class. That's just something that we do. He's a Christian, so I was not thinking this would be a big deal. Okay, I'm like, you're a Christian, I'm a Christian. We both went to seminary school together, so I was like, I figured this was not going to be a big deal. I was like, oh yeah, we pray before and after dance practice, so please don't take anything weird from it. I was like, some of the people pray in tongues, this and that, so just don't freak out. Like, just just be cool about it. Like, I don't want any surprises that the person that I bring to my dance class is the one who freaks out when I'm the big Christian. You know what I mean? Like, I just didn't want it to be a mess. And I learned immediately that even though we were both Christian, we had very different perspectives on church, on prayer, on tongues. I immediately learned all these things. And I was like, wow, this is a lot. Because I had never been so incompatible with someone who also believed Jesus was Lord. To have someone in my life who was supposed to be a Christian, I'm supposed to be dating them, I'm going to dance class, I'm going to bring them with me, and they're like freaking out because they don't want anything to do with this praying in the tongues thing. I'm like, well, if you don't mind, just be respectful and just don't say much. Like, if we're praying in tongues and you don't do that, it's okay. Just just be cool. Just be cool, okay? Don't embarrass me. And we got into this huge thing about praying in tongues. And he's like, oh, this, da, 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 it's not really biblical, yada, yada. And I'm like, I get what you're saying. I mean, I think it's in Book of Corinthians. I was like, I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying. I was like, but it's out of respect. Everybody there is like Bible believing, tongue praying kind of Christian. So if you could just kind of just kind of deal with it, even though and I realized then his church was different from my church. His church was like square. I felt like his church was a Catholic church. I didn't go to church with him, so I don't know what his church was like. But the way he described his church is like he likes a very square church. And I'm like, oh, when I go to church, they're all like, so I could tell right there we have different churches. That his church reminded me of Catholic church, very square, and mine was like a bit wild worship. And he described that he likes a peaceful, quiet, respectful worship time. And I'm like, oh, we have different ideas about worship time. We have different ideas about praying in the tongue, all in one conversation. And then I got, I talked to like the person I was teaching with. I was like, oh, can I bring so and so to the class? They were like, yeah, sure, bring him. And the guy, long story short, he didn't come to the class because whatever. I think all of this church thing just freaked him out, even though he's a Christian. So I say all that to say, being able, like, it's not just See, this is what God revealed to me about me. This is only for me. Like, you can receive it or reject this part. Because this is from my own prayer. God spoke to me. This was not a word for everyone, but it might be a word for some people. For me, what I learned is that equally yoked is, for me, it's not just someone who says they believe Jesus is Lord. It's gotta be bigger than I'm a Christian. It's gotta be similar values, surrendered life to Christ. They need to be able to lead me. And like, these things matter. Actually, I didn't really realize until I was in the moment and had to deal with it. Like, that was a situation, like, we weren't gonna work because the people at my dance class who pray like me, they are more like me. If that made any sense, I can't really put it into words, but those guys represented like my prayer life. They represented like the type of fellowship that I'm used to. And outside of that, people that square Christians, that didn't represent, like, even in my life now, people that I'm close to now, we're like that. We are the same like that. We have those things. We're like-minded believers. So that was actually, even though on paper it didn't look like an incompatibility, like, that wasn't a compatibility. Like, we didn't have the same. It's hard to put into words, but as I dated him longer, it all bled out and I understood better that we just were not compatible. Um, I think my concern is not that, one person, like, it's not specifically about church. I don't like the part where it says, like, oh, they don't want to come to your church. My question is why? Is it because they don't have the same, like, church related values? Meaning, like my situation, my guy at the time didn't want to do the prayer in tongues. He didn't want a noisy worship service. He wanted like a square peg worship time, and a like very like regimented service. And that's not the kind of church that I like. And that's, for me, that's a dead church. That's a dead church. So I wonder, are those really the issues that you've got to figure out? Why does the person not want to go? Is it because you perceive their church as a dead church, or they perceive yours as a dead church? Do you guys have the same kind of like tongue talking prayer life things? And does it, maybe for you, does it not matter? For me, it didn't matter because I was like, this is just weird. It's just weird. Like, it's just weird. Like, it was weird for me. I just felt like it wasn't a, I felt like everybody in my life, if a whole circle of all people who meant a lot to me, all the people that were close to me in the churchy aspect, we were all like very similar. And then he was like this episode of Sesame Street. One of these people doesn't belong. Like, it just didn't work out. So, I mean, I don't think it's, certainly, I mean, if you guys were at two different churches, I kind of think that's ideal. Um, I think it's okay if you go to one person's church and they go to yours and you guys just take turns. What I would say, what's wrong with going every week, go to a different church? You guys go to this one, then that one, this one, then that one. Why not just take turns so that you can continue to worship at your home churches, and then maybe you can worship at the opposite person's church, right? I don't know why that's an issue. Unless you're talking about one person wants to go to um like a temple, a Jewish temple or Islamic kind of temple, and the other person's Christian, unless it's different faiths, or unless it's like, Catholic and then regular Christian, like, unless it's something so different that you feel like it's just, it's not really compatible. I just don't know why you can't, if you're both the same faith, I don't know why. Let's see. Buddha and Lord. Let's see. You guys are talking about Buddha. Oh, you're unmarried and you're Indian? My goodness. I know that's really stressful in your culture. You see what I appreciate about your culture, Gaurav, is like in your culture, there's the idea of like at a certain age, you guys, parents need to get you married off and all these things. I actually appreciate that about your culture, that there's an interest in making sure kids don't have to navigate this thing alone, and like the partnering is like a family dynamic. There's something about that that I really appreciate. Um, it is much harder in America where the cultural tendencies are not towards the parents picking your person and setting you up. Yeah, it's just super hard. Like I ran into like one of my old neighbors today, and it was so cute because my neighbor used to be the unit secretary at the hospital that I worked at in ICU, and our kids used to play together. And so I would watch. I'd watch. It was so cute. The play dates were so cute. Well, she'd moved away, but her little boy was just so sweet, and he would like he was such a gentleman, and I always joked around, and I was like, they should get married one day. Blah blah blah. So I ran into her in the store today, and I was like, "Let me see a picture." And then she showed me a picture. I'm like, "I still want them to get married one day." So I mean, we'll see. Let's see. But yeah, it's always helpful if your parents can help move it along. Um, is it unusual? Is it unusual for two who are Christians, love the Lord Jesus, born again, read the Bible, and be unequally yoked spiritually? Is it unusual? I'm finding it quite for me. Okay, so here let me first define and qualify the word equally yoked. Because most people feel that equally yoked is just, I believe Jesus is Lord. And the other person's like, I believe Jesus is Lord. Most of the time, when you have both people believe in Jesus as Lord and they've surrendered their life to Christ, or at least they say they have, if they are just calling themselves Christians, most people say, okay, good enough, let's move forward. But for me, that's not enough. That's for me, that's not equally yoked. The idea of being equally yoked is we need to be in a pattern biblically where the man can lead and the woman can follow. That is being equally yoked. So for me, it's not just Christian. And it's very easy nowadays because a lot of people are lukewarm. It's very easy nowadays for the woman to be more spiritually mature, and then like that happens so much. So imagine that the woman's more spiritually mature, and then you look at the man's not as spiritually mature in some cases, not all. Now, if we're expecting the man to lead the woman in the marriage and in all things in the home, what do you do when the man is not as spiritually mature? That is a whole problem. That is a whole problem because it's a setup to where in her heart, the woman doesn't fully depend on the man. She's not, so therefore, she's not fully surrendered to, like, she's not submitting to him, So that man who's in charge of the home, technically, whatever he veers off because he's not following Christ, she's got to run back to Christ. So there's this natural tension that comes with that. Um, so do you see, guys? That's the dynamic. Like, I was so sad. I watched a woman on a reel recently. It broke my entire heart what this woman was saying on her reel. She spoke about just getting married and just the whole thing unraveling. And it started off by like she had this husband and she was pregnant, like 20 weeks pregnant, and he was already all and they had only been married for like a year. he was already cheating, already. And he cheated with like a coworker, you know? And she warned him before it happened. She was like, I don't like her. I don't trust her. Please stop talking to her. Please stop dealing with her. And she warned him, and he did it. And he did it anyway. And obviously they were having their intimate time because she's pregnant. So something must have had happened. Now, I don't know if she was sick a lot. So maybe things were not happening regularly. I don't know all the details. But I do know that it sounded like, from just the little that I heard, when she said that she was concerned about this third party interfering, and she asked for him to step away from it, and he was like, just no, I'm going to keep moving toward this thing. That was the first level of disrespect right there. And to me, that was a sign right there. Like, although she never spoke about this, she was just speaking about the cheating and whatnot. Um, what I would say is that to me was a sign that they were actually not equally yoked. That was a sign. So if that guy was Christian and she was a Christian, but if that guy was also Christian, that's the perfect thing that I'm trying to avoid in my whole life. That right there is a scenario that I would prefer for the rest of my life, to stay single versus have to enter a scenario like that. I don't want to enter that scenario. I don't want to enter that scenario at all. Because at the end of the day, marriage is still forever, you know, so you got to try to pray your way through all that. Of course, there's biblical reasons for divorce, and infidelity is one of them. But I'm just saying, like, when I saw that, and I saw that she's like, what she said on the call, where she's like, I could have prayed more, and I got emotional, and then I left the house, and then because he wouldn't listen, and then he actually did the full cheat. And what brought to my attention about this was that what she said is, I should have stayed and prayed, and that would have been very wise. She's like, I should have stayed in my house and prayed. I shouldn't have left, like, I guess go to her mom's house or go whoever that night. She's like, I should have stayed and prayed. And that would have been a barrier. That would have been a barrier. Now, at the end of the day, a year into a marriage, all that going on, for me, for a girl who says I should have stayed and prayed, that tells me her level of like faith, even though she did make some mistakes along the way. It at least tells that um, me that she is a girl who believes God. Now, on his side, even if he says he believes God, he's not, he doesn't live a surrendered life. So he already transgressed her by when she said, "Hey, don't step back. Don't deal with this woman. I think I see something here that you don't see. Leave her alone." And then he kept going toward her. That was him not being understanding right there, which is not biblical. Like, and it was a warning. And then he did it, right? So I would say, when the man is not able to spiritually lead, those realities become more, it's just more common. It's more common. Not saying that a equally yoked, surrendered life Christian can't fall. Yeah, those people can fall too, women and men. But I would just say it's more common when you don't live a surrendered life to Christ, and you've not been living your life in a surrendered life to Christ. If you're used to falling into your flesh, used to not battling your flesh, used to not crucifying your flesh, you're ready to transgress your marital partner, man or woman, either of the two. So that's why I think it's important. I think it's really important for the man to be able to lead spiritually as well as the whole picture. So yeah, I think this is a hard time for women. As women get older and we get more into our Bible, we grow more in the Lord. It happens. I see it more frequently, like with women than men, because if you go to church, most of the churches are full of women. So women are seeking the Lord as they get older. That's what I see. And then I see empty churches, like with like very few men. That's what I see. That's common. That's statistically a thing, which tells me that all of these women who love God, if they get married, they either end up mostly marrying unequally yoked, or married to unbelievers, or not marrying at all. And honestly, I already know the risk that happens, how much the devil comes against marriage. I already know that. I just, could I pray my way through a marriage with a struggling unbeliever? Yeah. Do I want to? No. No, in fact, I'm just not gonna. I'm just not gonna, So I've like just decided to take that. I used to date unbelievers, believe it or not, and it wasn't until like the recent year that God put it on my heart like no more, and I was like, okay, like I gotta leave that alone because it's not that, like, it's more important to not be pulled away from God, and that's just what you see in the Bible over and over again. It's people that you know, marry unbelievers and they get pulled away from God. So I think the hardship is a lot. Even if you don't get pulled away from God, like the warfare is harder. The attacks against the marriage are different because you got in the same home, you got two different altars. You got an altar of light and an altar of dark in the same home. And then you guys are becoming one flesh and all that. That is a mess. So it kind of like hit me this year that the season on that has ended, and since that, I just haven't dated since, because I live in a town that's mostly unbelievers. So it is what it is. I mean, you got to get out of a town of unbelievers. Like in the biblical time, you got to get out of those towns if you want to find somebody who's faithful. You got to go look someplace else. I'll meet me in Hawaii. All right, let's see what you guys are talking about. Yeah, but it could be. It could be. I mean, I dated somebody from seminary school, and I was unequally yoked. And I, at the time, I didn't like, I didn't, I didn't use those words back then. But it took me time and reflection to realize that's what happened. That's what actually happened. We were unequally yoked, so we didn't have the same values. We didn't have the same lifestyle. We didn't have the same thing. So we were never going to work. And it was much like dating an unbeliever because that's how unequally yoked we are. So it's perfectly possible for someone like, I mean, this guy had a whole degree, a whole like apologetics degree. So I mean, it he read his Bible up and down, backwards and forwards, and knew all the supplemental things. I mean, he knew his word, but like we didn't have the same spiritual walk. We didn't have the same ideas of values around the scripture. We didn't value the same things. So yeah, they can read their Bible and they can know Jesus. They can know of him, but that doesn't mean you're equally yoked. You would have. I was so surprised when I realized that, but we were not. We were not. So yes, it can happen. In fact, I have found more times than not, people who are believers, I have found that there's a real struggle when you get two believers who really know their Bible, but really have different ways of interpreting it. That can be a big mess. This is where it matters. This is where it matters, like when you're up under the same headship of a similar church where the beliefs are actually the same. This is why like if you go out with somebody who goes to a watered down church, but they think they know their Bible, but they know some watered down crazy version, unbiblical version, let me say that, let me add that, the unbiblical version, when you go out with someone who's got the unbiblical version of Jesus and that has been cemented in their head and they're strong with that, and then you also know your Bible, but you're like, that's not biblical, that's not accurate, that's not true. No, God did not say that. The level of tension is as high in those relationships as it is with an unbeliever. In fact, more so. I've had less tension with unbelievers because they don't know the Bible, and so they're just open to it. You know what I mean? People who think they know but they know unbiblically, my gosh, that's a mess. That's a mess. That is an absolute mess. Um, yeah. So now no more of that. Now, keep in mind, I came out of the world. So just background: I came out of the world. I used to be atheist, so I understand the mindset. So when I first got saved, I was still dating atheists here and there, some Christians, some atheists, you know. But I honestly, you really have to find someone. I realize that they're more the same than they are different. When you find somebody who lives an unsurrendered, like lukewarm life, and then an atheist, it's more the same than it is different. So I decided that it's not that I was missing somebody who's Christian. I was missing someone who had a surrendered life to Christ. That is what I was missing. And now that is like, part of the, what do you call it? The key attributes. If that's not there, then there's no point, because you're going to run into the same problems over and over again. And I actually think everyone should, like, everyone who really is like Bible believing, into their Bible, loving God type, I think they should look for that. But that takes, it took me like 3 years to really accept that truth, because that's a truth that's hard to accept. It's hard because what it means, it's a full surrender of your relationship life to God. It's a full surrender. And we as humans want to control everything. So, but when we surrender that, we accept that this person who maybe look good on the outside, if their heart is not right with God, then how are they going to lead me? As a woman, it's messier. I think for men, you can develop a woman somewhat, but for a woman, it's so much more messy because we're called to submit under that man. So can you imagine what a mess that would be if you find, as a woman, you find a man who is not, put it this way, they're really not found worthy of the calling of marriage because they have not surrendered first to Christ. They're really not worthy of that calling for you. But then you move forward anyway. The devil will take that and do hopscotch all over it. He will go crazy. He will go crazy. So it's through God's mercy and grace that he didn't allow me to get married in seasons where I was rebellious on that detail. Because I had opportunities to get married when I was still in those levels of rebellion. It was with God's grace that I did not end up married in seasons where I was still struggling in that way. So I'm thankful. It's by the grace of God. So even my singleness is a blessing. I consider it a blessing because there's freedom in knowing that either you have the person that's God's perfect will, or you have no one, which is still can be God's perfect will. That's easier to manage than it is to manage a marriage that's being pulled left and right all over the place. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. It's a mess. It's a mess. And it's not fun. I think people think singleness is so horrible. It's actually not that bad. So it's do you want someone? Yeah, but it's not that bad. When you have a really bad marriage, trust me, I know. Once you've had a bad marriage, that is that bad, because there's no, imagine, I don't actually, God has loved me so like tenderly. I don't even have loneliness. Like, I don't suffer from loneliness, even though I'm single. I don't have that. But there's nothing worse than being married and then looking at your marital partner like that's a stranger. That's literally a stranger. I don't know them. They don't know me. And feeling lonely while you're married, that is the depths of despair. Like, that is a hard moment. So that God has not called us to. He doesn't want us in marriages feeling lonely and isolated and this and that. But he wants us to stay in those. He wants us to stay and finish what we started now. He doesn't want us to have those issues, which is why he calls us into equally yoked relationships. He doesn't want us to have those things where we're feeling isolated from one another. So that happens because God's not in the marriage, or the person's not with God, or you're not right with God, or people have fallen away from biblical principles, renewing the mind. We're listening to our heart versus what God says. These things happen for all those reasons. If a woman has children, a potential mate in marriage does not have children, but his family values willing to accept your children, would that be a problem? If a woman has children and the husband, the future potential husband, does not have children, but has family values, I don't think that's a problem. That's only a problem for the guy. So the woman in this case, if the woman's the one with the kids and her future husband has none, the woman's not going to complain about that. She's going to be happy that she's got a good husband, right? It's the man who's entering a situation that's, a little bit, altered. He's the one who we'd have to ask, does he have a problem? I don't think the woman who has the kid who's looking for a partner is going to be upset. She's happy to have a good, healthy partner who can help her with child rearing and other everything. Um, Now it becomes the question, does the man want to enter that scenario? It's more of a question for him. Does he want to enter that? Maybe, maybe not, you know? Um, is it difficult for a divorced person to marry a man who's not been married but willing to get married? No. A person who's not been married, um, they just don't have the perspective of how difficult it can get. I think that's what they're missing. They may have gotten that perspective from friends and family, from difficulties they've learned from knowing other people that have been through it. But with the person who's unmarried who enters the situation, what they're missing is just life experience. Like they don't know, maybe they don't know about the levels of forgiveness that you have to seek. Maybe they haven't experienced that. They haven't experienced attacks against two people instead of attacks against themselves. But I think God supernaturally prepares people for that. So if you're called into marriage and you're the person who's single and you're going into a marriage with a woman who's got a child already, or going into a marriage with someone who's already been divorced before, I mean, they're divorced. They haven't really won any awards there either, by the way. So they may have learned things or they may not have. There are plenty of divorced people that are ready for divorce number 2, 3, and 4. So just because someone's divorced, don't assume that they learned from their marriage. They could have been divorced and learned nothing. In that case, the person who's never been married might be the safer person of the two. So I would just be cautious not to assume that a person who's unmarried and never been married, that that God can't supernaturally prepare them for all that's in front of them. And I would be cautious to say that a person who's been divorced, don't automatically assume that they learned from anything. They could literally be in the same mental boat that they were in the first time they got married. They may know nothing new. They may not they may not have done any self-reflection. They may not have assessed their attachment style or their childhood trauma. They may not have worked on themselves. They may have all the same bad habits. They may not have surrendered themselves to God. They may not renew their mind. Like you could find those divorced people too. So that's why the courting period is useful, to get to know what's going on in that head of theirs. Um, I don't think it's important to find someone who's like perfectly healed, because I think healing is such a process. I think you just want to find someone who's got, who knows what to do when they're triggered and knows when to run to God. Oh, I feel triggered. Let me run to God. Like for me, if I know that I'm like feeling down or not feeling right, then I know this is not a good time to like send an email, or it's not a good time to like go live. Like if I feel like down, then I just won't go live, or I just won't reply to anybody, or I may not call someone, right? So if I feel down, I don't do that. And I think that's understanding like you're not in your best moment and you're not ready to deliver the best version of yourself. That's you being smart enough to know yourself, and then creating like a healthy boundary, where you're not going to show up at your best. So there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, don't assume that a person who's divorced knows more than you if you've never been married. Sometimes they know less than you. Depending on how they've surrendered their lives, because some people do the work and they like, deconstruct what happened. after something goes wrong. I'm an overthinker, so I deconstruct everything. Every time something goes wrong, I'm always deconstructing. What did I do? Did I feed this? How do I need to resolve this? How do I need to not do this? I'm always doing that. I'm always in my head doing that. Um, because I actually, once I learn, I don't want to keep making the same mistake over and over. But that's me. Everybody's different. Some people, they just stay in the same cycle for 40 years. That's some people too. I don't, for me to stay in the same cycle that long, that's not winning. So that's not for me. So I won't date an atheist. Isn't that judging? LOL. Nope, it's wisdom. I'm not going to date an atheist because I've already done it. And now honestly, it was rebellion that I was doing that. I don't recommend it. And the Bible also says, do not be unequally yoked to an unbeliever. The Bible says that to us Christians. So the Bible already told me how to handle it. But then me and my own rebellion, I did it anyway. And it took me doing it for like a couple years to really realize, wait, this doesn't work that well. And all I could tell you is I could feel the pull. I could feel it. I could feel, um, even if any of those people proposed to me, I would have had to say no because I didn't have peace. Even in the relationship, I didn't have peace. And God will give you supernatural peace when you are supposed to marry someone. It will just be like, even if you're like in general, like a little bit like, oh my gosh, I hope it all works out. Hope we do the lifetime, blah, blah, blah. But at the same rate, you'll have peace. Like, yeah, like I should still move forward, you know? I'd never had peace. So I did what I wanted to do, and I was testing all these little boundaries. Now, I didn't end up fully backsliding and doing anything. Like me backsliding is me dating the atheist, but I didn't actually do anything bad outside of that. But it was more or less, I just felt the tension of being on the other end of a rope and someone trying to pull me in a different direction. Like here's some perfect examples that happened, and I honestly I've grown more since then, so I cannot tolerate these things now. So I tolerated some stuff then. Okay, so I was on a date with an atheist, and we went to Atlantic Station. It's like this. No, where were we? It's kind of like, was that Atlantic Station? I haven't been out for a while. It's like by the Brave Stadium. We went like near the Brave Stadium, and over there, there's some theaters and things like that, like theaters where like professional entertainers will go out, like J Lo will come perform and all the different ones. So we were like walking past that theater on a walk, and outside you could see these big banners of like all the artists that were coming and different things that were up and coming artists. And the first thing that I noticed was everything was so demonic over there. It actually, like, my spirit was irritated by it. So it bugged me, but I just didn't say anything because I'm always trying not to be that weird, super weird Christian girl, although I am that weird Christian girl. I don't always want to wear it on my forehead. So I'm trying to be normal, but I'm irritated. My spirit got irritated. I'm like, why is so much demonic stuff out here? I didn't say anything. So then the guy asked me, would I like to go on a future date to that thing, that event? These are the moments, y'all. Like, do you guys think that I want to marry that guy? You guys think I could ever marry that guy? I'm over here trying, y'all. I'm trying. This guy's asking me to go to this event, the event that's posted up there. He's asking me because it's posted up there and probably because I'm staring at it. I'm not staring out of admiration or interest. I'm staring probably out of awe. Like, this is where we're at in this world. I just didn't say it out loud. So because I'm staring and he sees I'm staring, he's like, "Oh, would you like to go to that event?" And I'm like, "Actually, no." No. I don't want to go to that. And I try to explain to him, like, that's ungodly and demonic. So I would at least try to explain it. He was listening, but he didn't. have the ears to really fully understand. I can see the veil was still over his eye. He, out of interest for me, he was trying to understand, like, what is this demonic stuff she's talking about? But he couldn't understand it because he partnered with it. So he practically couldn't understand it. So then a couple weeks would go by, he'd be like, oh, like, there's this concert. Do you want to go to this concert? And I'm like, oh, I love concerts. And then I'm like, send me the artist. I just want to like know what I'm getting myself into. He sends me the artist and he's like, sends me a link. And then I go, I'm like, I don't know these people. So then I go Google for like one of their recent like videos. I open up the video, y'all. It's literally like a demonic ritual in the video. Literally, it was like a woman wearing something in a church. Not a lie. This is the music video. It's heavy metal. That's number one. Nothing against heavy metal, but like, don't say demonic things and don't have demonic videos. Okay, so it's heavy metal. Then you open the video and it's like in a church, and it's a woman in the church dressed in some funny, it might have been white, I don't know, but it's all the people wearing some dark or either black or red, and they're all circling around the woman, circling around the woman. And I'm like, then I go one step further and I'm like, what are the lyrics to this song? Because this is what I'm doing in preparation to respond to, do I want him to buy tickets to this concert? Okay. I'm like, hold on, let me check the artist. So then I Google, I see the video, and I'm like, then I'm like, let me go look just for kicks and giggles. I already don't want to do it, right? But for kicks and giggles, I'm like, let me see what these guys talk about when they sing. So I Google the song. The song is talking this darkest, darkest, darkest stuff. The song was saying, basically, you know how like we have like we're covered by the blood of Jesus, and there's like we have hope in that. We have hope in that. They're saying basically there is no hope. Basically, it's talking about unaliving yourself. It's talking about using of substances and just crazy stuff. Like, I don't want that stuff, those words, I don't want anywhere near my spirit, period. I don't want those words anywhere near me at all. Do you guys hear what I'm saying? And so then I messaged him back. I was like, it's gonna be a no to this one. Uh, can you maybe find a Latin concert instead? and then so he's like, well, what was wrong with it? And I was like, no, I said, well, is it okay if I share with you what's wrong with it? Because I'm trying not to be the weird Christian girl, but I am the weird Christian girl. I am. But so I find myself constantly like bringing up Jesus and talking about God, but it's like going right past him. All right. So I was like, well, have you had a chance to like listen to the lyrics to their songs by chance? And he's like, no. And then I like took like a screenshot of the lyrics and sent it to him. I was like, read that. I'm like, this is what they're saying. I'm like, do you want that soaking inside of you? No, right? He's like, oh, I never really listened to the lyrics. And I was like, gotcha. I'm like, I take a screenshot of like the video and I said, I'm like, do you realize they're doing a demonic ritual in this video? I was like, you can't make it up. He's like, oh, I never, and I'm just like, yeah. No, I would not like to go to that concert. No, I don't. No, I don't. And then, as if it's any better. So then, it's a few years later. I'm going out with a Christian, and they're like, "Oh, why don't you come over so that we can decorate the house for Halloween?" Y'all make it make sense. So my question is this: I'm asking for a friend. No, I'm asking for you guys. Guys, do you guys see any difference between those two guys? The Christian who invited me over to decorate his house for Halloween. Do you guys see any difference between that guy and the atheist? You let me know. Just let me know. Let me know. Let me know if I'm nuts. If you think I'm nuts, because I'm not nuts. Let me know if you think I'm nuts or if you think that those are the exact, literally the same people. Like at the end of the day, I'm going to say it's the same spirit working out of both of those people. One person called themselves a Christian, the other person did not. I felt the tension with both people the same way. I'm like, hey, you realize I don't celebrate Halloween. Oh, why not? Halloween's great. Uh, it's demonic. I was like, I'm a Christian. So am I. I'm like, it's demonic. No, no. so having to give the same level of information to the person who says they love Jesus and the person who does not know Jesus is diabolical to me. It's diabolical. So that's all. That's not judging. That's like, can I submit myself under either of those people? Y'all tell me. Y'all tell me. Can I trust them? You know, that they're leading me to the correct direction for eternity? It's a no. It's a no, y'all. So yeah. So yeah, after all that, I just stopped. I just stopped. I realized that this is the town that I lived in. Like we normalize um ungodliness. It's just normalized. And so in this town I'm a weirdo and I've accepted that. In fact, it's just me and the Lord. I accept it. All right, let's see. Neither does the book say these are separate beings. Holy Spirit to help us sick. Um, I learned you cannot. I learned you cannot date. Let's see. He said, please comment. I learned you cannot date. I think you're saying you can't date and change someone who's a non Christian. And I agree with that. I don't. Here's what I say. This is basically from the woman's perspective. Don't forget, the woman has to submit to the man. So it's a big deal when you become in one flesh, partnering, marriage, all that. That is a big deal. So submitting under a man is such a big deal that you don't want to be led all kind of wild ways. You don't, that's not safe anymore. Um, and if you submit under the wrong person, you're going to have to pull back and then follow Jesus anyway. So you're not going to be properly submitting. And even in a worldly mindset, it's going to frustrate the man. Even in the worldly mindset, he's going to feel emasculated. It's not going to work. So now that's basically what I would call dating evangelism. I mean, I'm okay with evangelism. I just don't want to do it on dates all the time. I'm okay with doing it sometimes even, but like I don't want to do it right now. Let's say, but yeah, I don't think it's wise. I don't think it's wise for a woman to try to do that and get in those situations because these are people that are not being led by God. You know, if they're not being led by God, the devil is leading them. That's as simple as that. So they're so much more susceptible to the enemy's tricks because they don't have the Holy Spirit. When they're like that, they don't have the Holy Spirit because they don't have a conviction. They're numb to everything. So you're going to have a world of problems as a woman trying to submit up under it. If it's the flip side, who is it? John Bevere gave a great example of how much easier it is for men. He, all right, so I'll give a little bit of his story. John Bevere, he's like one of these major figures in church leadership. He does a lot of podcasting and things. He's got a ministry with his wife. From what he shared that when he was young, college age, he was going hard for God, doing evangelism, all these things. And he met his wife, and his wife was not saved. But she was gorgeous. So I'm sure that turned got his attention. So she was not saved. He did preach the gospel to her, and she was a baby Christian, but he led her to Christ. And they dated like right after that, like pretty much 5 seconds after that. And then they eventually got, quickly got married and all that stuff too. So, and she didn't live like a pristine lifestyle from what she described. She was like regular worldly lifestyle. And then he brought her to Christ. Okay. So that's a perfect example of a man can lead a woman that way, because it's also, think about it, that's essentially what he's going to be doing in marriage. There's going to be new things in Christ that he will have knowledge of, he will have perspective on, and he will be guiding that woman along the way. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it when you've got a man who, does do the evangelism, and then the woman does cross over, become a Christian, baby Christian and all. It's a little bit more difficult to lead her because she's gonna be maybe potentially a handful. All of us have to remember when we were baby Christians and like how many mistakes we've made along the way. So she's gonna need some grace for all the little mistakes she makes along the way for growth. It's just gonna make him more understanding. But at the end of the day, that can be done. But that's like as close to the edge as you probably want to get. The risk in marrying somebody like that right off the jump is that sometimes people back, they're not, we think they've converted, but they converted out of peer pressure versus a true conversion. And then what looks like is backsliding is that they just were never saved. And if they were never saved, then they're still belonging to the king of darkness, and then they want to drag you back there. So and that happens with sometimes with men. They'll say that, oh, I met my wife, she wasn't saved, and then I led her to Christ and I got her there, but then she went back and she cheated on me and she this and she that. Probably she was never actually saved. She just probably pulled a trick to like get you and keep you, right? Oh yeah, sure, I love him too, you know. Oh yeah, I love Jesus, kind of like that thing, right? So I think that's the thing. You have to have excellent discernment and have such a good relationship with God. If you're a guy and you go for a new convert lady Christian, you just have to be like, you have to know from God that you have peace about the fact that you will be able to understand her on her bumpy road journey, that you'll be able to give her grace and forgiveness on that bumpy road journey. And the same kind of grace that God gives her, that God's supernaturally giving you the ability to do that, and that He's with you on this walk, and that she really is converted and not a fake conversion. That's what I think. That's the risk. The risk is so many times guys will say, well, I thought that she converted and then she did 1, 2, 3. Well, 1, 2, and 3 doesn't sound like a Christian. That sounds like a regular worldly person. Probably she wasn't converted. She probably just said it. And if you, sometimes you tell a guy that and they'll get really offended. Like, well, where's the fruit that she's converted? It takes time to see it, but you didn't wait for the fruit. Well, then you don't really know. So yeah, sometimes they move fast, and then before seeing the fruit, they marry the girl. That's risky because you only know by the fruit that maybe that was a true conversion versus something good to say. But anyway, I say that to say that's a beautiful marriage. That's a perfect example that the man can be further along, the woman can be unsaved. He can walk her to Christ, and then they can be happily ever after, and they have a beautiful, strong ministry that is completely anointed and blessed. If that makes any sense. So I say all that to say, on the guy side, I think it's a lot more. There's a lot more flexibility because of headship. That's the reason. It's because Christ is the head of the church, and then man is the head of the family following Christ, and then the woman follows the man. It's because of headship, I think the man can take the chance of taking a new convert on and then walking with them. But I don't think it's as easy for a woman to meet with who to be spiritually mature and meet with a new convert guy Christian. I think that's risky. My experience has been no for me. That's a no for me. I don't want to do that. I'm not going to do that. That's a no for me because I've already seen how sticky it gets with people who aren't even new converts. That's a no for me. That's a no. Because at the end of the day, I have to remember, like, can I submit to them? If the answer is I don't know, maybe this week, but not next week, then that's not going to work. That's a mess. That's just a mess. Okay, yeah, I see you guys in here. I said I went through a divorce after 16 years of marriage, and it was the worst year ever 16 years ago, and I'm going to be careful not to ever go through that again. Amen. Amen. I'm with you on that. Um, so the Bible does say that we shouldn't judge, but at the same rate, we have to be mindful because we are within our inner circle. We have to judge in order to use discernment to see who needs to be close to us and who does not. So the judgment shouldn't come from a place of like nanny boo boo kind of stuff, right? It's more of a you're judging to make sure that whoever you keep close should be kept close versus a little bit at a distance. So you do need to judge somewhat. You do need to like assess. Oh, you're welcome, Greg. I see you said thank you for answering the questions. Samuel. Somebody said set an alarm, take a good listen to the late Kevin Samuel's teachings before you're in a relationship. You know what's interesting? I was not a long time listener of Kevin Samuels. I've only like listened to a few clips. Um, I will say this about the clips I've seen. I have not seen all the clips and I have not watched a full video of anything. But I will say that from what I could see, he wasn't very nice about how he said his things, but there was a lot of honesty in many of the things he said. And what he did promote is he promoted people to get married and stay married. And when women came up there with irreconcilable differences, label marriages up for divorce, labeled by irreconcilable differences, he would turn them around and say, "You don't have a valid reason for divorce." So, and he would say the risk is basically you may not get remarried, you may not do better. So you should turn it around and go back to your husband really fast. So I don't think that's an unwise thing to say. I just think the way he said it, he often would demean women and be very hurtful in his tone, word choice, and in his approach. He was very hurtful, but there are many things he said that were not all. He's not some pastor type, so he used a lot of profanity now, but many things he said that made perfect sense biblically. They just weren't. He didn't say it with. He 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 didn't say it nicely. He didn't say it nicely, but he said what needed to be said. And you know, I would rather see him say it mean um, than not say it because he wasn't saying anything but the truth. I mean, it's these are facts. I mean, I'm a perfect example of it. I thought I would get remarried, and then it never happened. It never happened. So I think the devil has told a lot of these women, "Oh, you're gonna like you can do this, you can get rid of that, you can do that, you can da da da, and you're gonna have a great life, and it's gonna be so easy." Yeah, the devil is a liar as well. So all he's calling out is the fact that you guys don't be. He's basically saying, "Watch out. There's danger out here outside of that marriage that you have that you're throwing away. There's danger out here." And it may not end up the way you're planning for it to. He's just being honest. But in his honesty, he could have softened it. But you guys know, internet, the TV, however you want to call it, he's doing it for the clicks and likes, right? He's, making sure that it's information that gets a lot of traction. So it's, but what he said, a lot of what I saw him say was accurate. He just wasn't he wasn't nice about it. but it was the same wisdom that's in the Bible. And, if that was your father and you're in a perfectly reasonably healthy marriage and you're just bored, your father would also say, turn around and go back to your husband. So he just was not nice about it. So, but it would be good if he didn't, it would be good if he didn't always focus on physical attributes so much. I think that was really demeaning and hurtful and not necessarily useful either, because I don't know that any woman necessarily came away from that feeling hopeful about, maybe it did make them feel more motivated, but I thought the like commentary about their looks was basically abusive. I thought that was too much. I thought that was way over the edge and really hurtful. Um, but I think what he was trying to communicate is like have a realistic perception of yourself based on, you know, who's in your who you're attracting. Use who you're attracting as a data point. And essentially that's what I did when I spoke about my own beauty. And I was like, oh, in Atlanta, I'm average. If I'm in the country, maybe I'm above average. But in the city with all these women who are like on TV, yeah, I'm pretty average. I'm average. I sit somewhere in the middle. That's me just understanding the perception. If I go to a smaller town where I don't have to sit next to these girls on television, then maybe I'll be above average. But here, I'm average. So this is the practical wisdom. He was basically trying to say, like, have a realistic view of yourselves. Um, and and that's what I think he was trying to say sometimes. Like, if you're thinking you're going to just do this and then you get out there and in comparison to where you live, you may not have, like, I think he was speaking some truth, but at the same rate, he doesn't know, like, he doesn't know how these women are going to show up when they, go out. He doesn't know if they're going to be well put together and all that. But I will say this, like some of them showed up online looking like they didn't care. So I'm going to assume if you did that on his channel, which is got millions of views, I'm going to assume that you go out looking a mess too. But yeah, we'll see. Um, Interesting, Aladdin saying that a man's first attraction to a woman is how she looks. That I honestly have to say that's true. I mean, I can't say that like a guy is sitting here looking like, well, I feel the personality on me, and now I see that she's pretty. No, they are attracted to the looks. It is. It's true. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong that a person's attracted. Like, doesn't the woman want to feel attractive to the guy? Yeah. So it's not that big a deal. Um, There's nothing wrong with a man being attracted. It's what's wrong is if they are led by their flesh, meaning they can't make a full comprehensive decision of what's good for them and bad for them based on all data points. I think that it's good to be attracted, and I don't think we should shy away from our need to have a physical attraction. But if you're talking about marriage, I think you have to remember that marriage requires us to use many data points in order to make a decision. And attraction is one data point, but it's only one point. There are many data points before you move forward with someone. So for that reason, sometimes you'll see people marry someone who they have a little less attraction for because there's other data points that made that decision as well. It wasn't one. And I think that's a wise way of making decisions. But I think you should be attracted to your wife. I don't think you should go marrying somebody that you're not attracted to. I don't think that's wise. But I'm hearing that more and more nowadays, actually. I'm hearing it from Christians though. I'm hearing Christians saying, it makes me kind of sad though, y'all. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. I'm hearing Christians um, on podcasts, couples podcasts. It's more than one, y'all. I've heard three different Christian podcasts talk about their like marriage situations, and basically all three different ones, and this is three different races as well. One was a white couple, one was a Hispanic couple, and one was a black couple. Three different races, all Christians, and each of them basically said the same thing. And it does give me a little bit of pause. Um, it gives me a little bit of pause. The Hispanic couple was the youngest of the bunch. They were in their mid to late 20s. The black couple was a little bit older. They're in their 30s. And then the white couple was the oldest. They were in their 40s. And in each one of the, just to give you guys background, I don't know if it matters to you guys, yes or no, but I'm just giving you the background for their ages so that you can do what you want with it. The white couple, um, the white couple basically said that they dated for a very long, extended period of time. Basically, that the woman was basically immediately in love with the guy, and then the man didn't have that certainty, and it took him like 9 years to make the decision. Um, Eventually, he did decide on her, but that and he didn't say other than he had some health issues early on. It clouded his judgment a bit. Um, he didn't specifically say otherwise what made him take so long, but that's just what happened. So he took that long, 9 years later. And towards the end, like they were so happy. So happy endings in all three, by the way. But they are so happy, so happy. Um, so I mean, to me, I'm gonna make the wild assumption he just wasn't that attracted to her. That's what I think. I think he took a long time to decide because he wasn't that attracted, and he was thinking I'm gonna try to go with someone else, but then it never worked out with anyone else, and then I think he ended up going with her. That was couple one. The second couple that was in their 30s was the black couple. They basically this was interesting one. This was an interesting one. The woman said that she went to a conference, a Christian conference, and the man was working in the ministry, so he was one of the people that were leading deliverance and prayer and all these things. And then the woman basically said she was an attendee of the Christian conference, and she had like a lot going on with like inner healing that was she was working through, and she didn't know this guy from a can of paint. And then he said about her that he initially wasn't even attracted to her. He said she's goofy, and that's how he perceived her, and he used that word. It's not my word, it's his word out of his mouth, not mine. He said, oh, I thought she was kind of goofy. And she basically said that when she got up, she said that she got up to the aisle to receive her prayer, and she had all this emotional stuff, emotional baggage, and she was just looking to have a breakthrough and healing, and that's what she came there for. He said that he was going to the conference, supposed to be there with another girl from the church, but that girl didn't like him so much, so she just kind of, headed on out. And so he just decided to stay and then work the conference. So he actually was going as a couple, but the other girl didn't really like him, so she like skipped. So he had his ticket. He went anyway. He went alone. The church was like, "Hey, we need you to do prayer and deliverance." So he came to the front to do that, to work for the church. And the new girl, the future wife, came up, and not knowing any, like they know each other, but they're not a thing. They're not interested. So she comes up, and she's like going through her inner healing and prayer, and he starts to like receive a download from the Lord on her. He said, imagine this is a girl that he considers goofy. He gets a word from the Lord about whatever very personal things going on with her. And he's praying over her. He said, I don't remember what I said, but he's getting these downloads, and he's praying over her. And he's praying over her. And whatever he said, she understood, like, this man knows God, that he heard that from God, because she had never shared whatever that was. So she, like, basically burst into tears because she was like, I know God is using this man right now. So she's crying and, out of control about it. And she basically said she fell back into her chair. She was standing initially, and she was so overwhelmed with, like, emotion when he prayed whatever he prayed, and she knew it was from the Lord, that she fell back and she fell into the chair. She was sitting now. Now she's, like, crying, and ugly crying. She describes it as, like, ugly crying. And she's ugly crying in the chair. And then she said she looked up, and she said she looked up and she got a word from the Lord that that was her husband. And that's crazy. So in the midst of, like, he basically delivered her, and she falls out into the chair, and she's crying because it's so deep and it's so real, and she needed that inner healing, and she's receiving that inner healing. And as she looked up, the Lord said to her, that's your husband. And she was like, what? So then their journey began. And this is a 30 something year old couple. That was actually a really good story. And their journey began, and it was a kind of a long one, couple years long one, maybe like 3 years or something. It wasn't, no, 9 years now. It's kind of like maybe like 3 years long. And it took 3 years because she knew that God said that was her husband, but she didn't tell him that, and he didn't know that was his wife. He was still, like, you know, you know, being a dude. He was still being a dude, looking for his wife, because in his head he considers her goofy. So it took him a while to catch on. What's interesting is when I saw the video, immediately the girl is actually so beautiful. She's so super pretty, by the way. And I'm like, this is how the devil, like, corrupts our our taste for what God has for us. Because his description for this woman was goofy. Not only was this girl not goofy, I think she was super pretty. I thought she was super pretty. Now, people can have their scale for whatever. I don't know. I'm just saying, I think she's super pretty. I thought she was not goofy at all. But, to each their own. I don't know. Maybe before her inner healing, maybe she was more goofy. I don't know. And I don't even know what he meant by that. Is goofy like a personality, or is goofy like a goofy look? Like, what did he mean by that? I don't even know. Okay? So that was couple number two. And eventually she never shared with him that God had spoke that to her, but she just kept it close to her heart, and she stayed, like, patient and waiting. And obviously he eventually came around, loved her, realized that was his wife, and then he proposed, and they went happily ever after. So they are so cute, y'all. Oh my God. Them two, I love them. They are so super cute. Okay. And then the third couple, the third couple is a young one. They're an interesting one. The third couple, I shouldn't giggle. I'll be honest. Let me be serious now. The third couple, why am I giggling? They're so young, but when I say they're so young, I mean this. I think if they were, like, even 5 years older, I don't think they'd be as honest on their podcast. They're so young, and that they are so incredibly honest. And yeah, I don't, they're too honest. So they got up there, the young couple, they're like, the girl is about 25, maybe she's like 24, 25. The guy is more like 27, 28, like that age. The young couple, the Hispanic couple, they're interesting because, like, they're, like, very strict Christians. They're very, like, they go really hard for God. They don't like, um they don't like casual dating, which, I mean, I also don't either. I mean, we say some of the same things, but they are very hard about it. They remind me of me when I first got saved. so so if that makes any sense, like they remind me when I first got saved how I was like so hard to. Like you could tell they're at that. To me it gives a feeling of they just began their walk with Christ because they're so hard on everything that I'm like, wait till some of that dust settles and you guys will be in the smooth groove with your Christianity and not so like up. They're a little uptight. They're a little bit uptight. I was uptight too, so no judgment. I was uptight too. um, they were they were just too honest. They were so honest that I was like, oh gosh, I'd be mortified. So the guy basically said, I think it was similar. The girl seemed to have a knowing and a peace about that guy being her husband much earlier. And she didn't say anything, but but the way he described her, and she describes herself as well, they mutually describe her as very tomboyish. And basically she wasn't very feminine, and she basically wore the baggy clothes and was very like, she just looked presented very boyish, and um, didn't have that femininity going. Like she didn't wear makeup. She just didn't any of those things. She kind of like, nothing wrong if you don't wear makeup. I mean, she just was, she described herself as very masculine, and she, was very like aggressive. And he commented that that's something that he also didn't like about her. So she came into their connection through ministry, and she came into the ministry just serving him, and then he became like a mentor to her, and that was the extent, like nothing relational, just like mentoring. And she basically had like a lot of things to help his ministry. So she knew like photography and videography and video editing. She also was an evangelist and a street evangelist. And so she wanted to come up under someone so that she could do the things that she liked to do safely. Kind of like me, like I like to do street evangelism, but then I don't have anybody like local to do my stuff with. So then I end up not doing it as often, or I only do it when I'm led, or I do it when I travel to places that like I know that area. Like I know that area. So I do it a lot in New Orleans because I grew up there. I was out there partying on those streets, so I know that town. So I don't fear being in my hometown on the streets doing evangelism, because that's same place where I did all the crazy horrible things. So I know that place, and I wear like I know that place so people don't mess with me in my hometown, because I don't present like a tourist, because I don't. They can feel that she knows this place, or she's from here, or she lives here. They just assume I live there. So yeah, so she was doing like street evangelism. She came up under his wing. I suppose same reason she kind of needed like some headship for street evangelism, because otherwise it can get a little dangerous, aka messy. So she was under him, and then as she was under him, she started to see that she had all the different things to help him with his ministry. And so she offered those skills. And so she was, able, it's just, that was a cute thing. Like you could see how they were puzzle pieces that fit, like that, she knew video editing, videography, and she was like the female evangelist in the group, and that he was like the hardcore male evangelist, and all the things that he didn't have, she had. So it was just like that nice puzzle piece fitting together. Um, so he describes her as masculine. She described herself as masculine. He described himself as not attracted to her, which is a very, like in wisdom, I don't think I want to hear that. I don't care. I don't want to hear my guy's not attracted to me. Just keep that to yourself. Even if you grew out of it, just keep that to yourself. So he's like, no, I wasn't attracted to her. And I'm like, I mean, I'm sure that's true for a lot of people who God brings together, but I just don't want to know it. So they're saying this online. So it's not like it's not public information. She was like, yeah, she was hardcore. She was too masculine. Like she'd wear like jeans and baggy t-shirts and this and that. And she just wasn't, I never saw her in a dress. And she just, wasn't like, now she's on the podcast full on in a dress every time, full on in some kind of sundress or some kind of skirt, or she always looks pretty and feminine. She's a beautiful girl, by the way. Actually, she's beautiful. She just was maybe boyish, tomboyish, and he was very clear that he just wasn't attracted to it. Like he didn't see himself with her, and so I think she gotten a word a little bit sooner than him, and she kind of just stayed the course, and then God was also doing a work in her for like making her a little bit more softer, more feminine, just doing a work in her inner work. All this time while he's trying to kind of find his own way. And eventually, he said he's driving in a car on the interstate and he's like, God gave him a word that that was his wife. And he was like, look what he says. He says, no. He didn't want her. He didn't want her, y'all. So he's like, no. Because why? Because he wasn't fully attracted to her. Duh. He's like, no. And then God was basically like, no, this isn't about, oh, this is what God said. God says, this isn't about you. Y'all, I mean, God just like laid down the law for this man. First, he was like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. And he's like, this isn't about you. Like, this is about your ministry being fruitful. And this is the person who's meant to build what we need to build. And there you have it. And with that, he was like, okay, Lord. So can you imagine? But like, even though this is their true story, honestly, if this is my husband, I can't ever have him. He can never tell that story to me, let alone tell it online. Like, he can never tell me that story out loud. I don't want to know that story. I want to know that I don't want to know anything. I want to be blissfully ignorant. I don't want him to lie, but I don't want to know that truth. That's too much truth. Too much truth for me. Or maybe I'm just not, maybe I'm not strong enough for that kind of truth. Maybe I'm too sensitive for that kind of truth. Maybe it's different because she was a little less mushy, a little less soft, and I'm a little bit more mushy, a little bit more soft. I'm not built for that kind of truth. I need either someone to not say anything or lie a lot and lie well. No, you're the best thing ever. No, you're the most beautiful. Oh, no, I only have eyes for you. Lie. This is when it's acceptable. But yeah, that's what I think. So those were the three couples that I saw. In each one of those couples, it looks like one, two, three, all three of them, the women knew first. And in that case, the man came along really quickly. In the little Hispanic couple, God let him know super quickly. So it wasn't that one took years. So once God let him know, he was like right on board and he got it moving. So I thought that one was interesting. But I think in every case, if I had to whittle it down, in every case, I will say, out of the two, I think at the end of the day, all three times the guy thought that physical attributes, I don't think that was the girl that they were targeting in their mind. I think they were targeting a different kind of looking girl, but that's the girl they ended up with. And then God said, that's your girl. So I think they all fought it, but it took them varying amounts of time to come to the conclusion that that is the one. The first one, the white couple, 9 years, man. And she said that what's interesting is what she said about it, which would have had, really, that one had me kind of choked up. The white woman said, that's the oldest couple, the ones that when they're in their 40s. The white woman said that I actually thought, like, when he finally proposed to me, she goes, I actually thought that, like, I actually got nervous because I thought that maybe, like, I started thinking, like, maybe I wasn't enough. All these years had passed, I never was enough. So she's like, I started thinking that, like, how could I possibly be enough? And she thought that it was going to be hard for her to, like, how do I say? She described it being hard, like it would be hard for her to, like, she was hoping that it wouldn't weigh on her for a lifetime, that like I'm not pretty enough, I'm not good enough. Like she had that psychology going on in her head literally because of 9 years of waiting, which is diabolical. I'm just gonna tell you the truth. That's diabolical. There is no way. Honestly, there's just no way. I mean, that's insane. So, but she waited. She waited, and she was right. She was right. So, yeah, that's tough. For her, she said she had a lot of psychology going on in her head during the engagement phase. But then she said after they got married, he was the perfect husband. And she was like, I could see why God had me wait. So she has no regrets, which I find interesting. Um, she said she has no regrets and her marriage is absolutely blissful. And she said now he often says, this is the sweet part, at least he had something to make up for it. He's very, like, often embarrassed of the story because he said he feels like he's the bad guy. Whenever the story gets told, he's the bad guy. And, um, and he said that, and she said that, um, he just basically, he's more than I could have ever expected. And every day he shows her that she's amazing and great and perfect and enough. Like she's like, God renewed something in me to where I don't have that weight on me like I did when we were in the engagement phase. So that's what I thought was so interesting because I think for me, if somebody kept me waiting 9 years, I might as well just go ahead on about my business because I don't know if I would have that same reaction unless God supernaturally healed something because I might be all messed up in the head. But she said whatever that was, um, God fixed whatever was in her head, and He redeemed all that was in her head. And what was interesting is he said that he wishes they just didn't have that such a long time figuring it out because he just wants more time with her. So these are like their marriage is so sweet and he fought it so much. Their marriage is the most sweetest thing ever. But that story, he didn't say it because he has wisdom. He knows better than to say it. I have a feeling he just wasn't attracted to her. That's what I think. That's why it took him 9 years. He just wasn't attracted to her. But he moved forward. I think that's what happened. But I think that's the truth. But he's smart enough in his older years. He knows better than to say that to the woman that he goes home with that night. But those other two guys, a little too young and a little too dumb, they both admitted that they were not attracted to their wives. They admitted it to their wives and on a podcast. Who does that? I just don't know. All right, guys. I don't do apologetics, but I don't do apologetics. I dated somebody who did apologetics, but I don't do apologetics. That's not my degree. I have a master in divinity. So, yeah, I don't do apologetics like that, but I think by nature of being live, I think it's something that you have to sharpen. I just think you have to. Otherwise, how do you bring someone to the faith other than, telling your testimony, showing them the love of Christ, you know, answering whatever questions. I think you also do have to defend your faith a little bit too. So, I think you have to, but yeah. Ooh, somebody said speak on the dangers of Christians dating someone from a different religion. I think that is I think you just take it back to what happened to King Solomon. He was over there dating all these women who had different gods, and God warned him, that's going to pull your heart away from me. So I think that's the risk. I think the risk is particularly strong for men um, because women tend to just be more spiritual anyway. But I think the risk is particularly strong for men because we tend to have a lot of influence over men. And I don't make the rules. It just is what it is. We don't have headship, but we do have influence. So and that's a real thing. And when a man's in love, we have even more influence. So if we're pushing for something and we're going to bed unhappy and all that, men tend to bend to give us more of what we want. So I think it's a huge risk. I say all that to say I think it's a huge risk. Um, I actually think that it goes back to what I said. Headship is important. Man should follow Christ. Women should follow man. If that's out of order, it's going to be a mess. If someone is dating someone from a different religion, I mean, it's going to be a mess. I'm just okay. Here's a perfect example. I went out with a guy a few years ago. I went to a Christmas party, and I went with this guy who's not a Christian, and I didn't care. It wasn't like I wasn't gonna marry the guy. I was just like gonna go to the Christmas party, and I figured it'd be fun, and I thought I went. So I went to the Christmas party, and the Christmas party was actually super cool, as I thought it would be. It was super super cool. The food was amazing. The people were very nice. Amazing party. Super fancy. And I leave the party. No, during the party, like in between the dancing, we're sitting at the table, and at the table, he's bringing up these. I don't know why he's bringing up church stuff. We're at a party. Like do you guys see what I'm saying? Like the devil's always working, because I know I'm that crazy churchy girl. I know that I'm super churchy, but I try to like not be the weirdo Christian all the time. Like I get in these situations, I like, okay, Hannah, don't be the weird Christian. Behave. So I enter this thing thinking I'm not going to be a weird Christian. I'm not going to be a weird Christian. I'm not going to be a weird Christian. And then here comes the devil. So so the guy like has a different faith. I didn't know what his faith was. I mean, it didn't matter. I was just going to go to this party. So he comes out with like, oh, so he knows that I podcast, though. He knows that I do all this. He's not a listener. Okay. He's not a listener, but he knows that I podcast. He knows that I podcast on Christian things. So he's like, oh, yeah, yeah. So he brings up whatever. I can't remember what his faith was. It wasn't like, was it like a Buddha? I think it might have been like a Buddha or something. So he brings up like his Buddha, and he's talking about that, and I'm like, okay. I'm trying to like not be a weird Christian. Hannah, don't be. And in my head, this is what's happening as I'm at the dinner table. I'm at the dinner table. Imagine I'm at the dinner table. I'm sitting here. There's the dance floor right here. There's the caterers coming out with the food, and then there's like all of the like party tables like over here. And I'm sitting here, he's going into his Buddha thing. And I'm like, Hannah, this is like a one date thing. Don't be a weird Christian. In my head, don't be a weird Christian. Don't be a weird. Don't be weird. Don't be weird. But y'all, I am weird. I am a weird Christian. So I can't help it. So he starts talking about Buddha. And the first time he says something about it, I'm just listening, and I'm going like this. And I realize that as I'm listening, I'm nodding my head. And I'm like, wait a second. As I'm nodding my head, inside of my head, I'm thinking this: we can't let him think that we agree with his Buddha. We can't let him think that anything's better than Jesus. So I'm going like this out of like just listening habit, like as a habit, as a listener. I'm like, But as I'm doing that, I'm like, I've got to correct that head shake. I've got to correct it. Like, what am I going to do? Am I going to start doing this? So I don't want to do that all of a sudden. That would look crazy. But I'm thinking about this all in my head, because what I'm thinking about is Jesus, actually. I'm like, I don't want him to think that I agree, because that's what the devil's always trying to do, guys. The devil's always trying to get you to come into agreement something before he has some legal right over you. So I'm just shaking my head, but I wanted it to be clear that this is just like what I'm doing. It doesn't mean that I agree with you. So if I just let him finish speaking, he talks and talks and talks about Buddha. Whatever he's saying, it's going in one ear and out the other. Right? It's doing that. And then I'm like, once he's finished, I'm like, okay. I was like, just so you know, I don't want you to think that we have full agreement here. I just want you to know that. I know I was shaking my head. I just wanted to confirm that you understood. I was listening, but I wasn't agreeing. I just want you to know that. But anyways, let's not be weird about this. Let's carry on to the party. So I'm like trying to get back off the topic, like put that away. Don't be a weird Christian. Hannah, in my head, don't be a weird Christian. Don't be weird. Don't be weird. And then he brings up Buddha again. And here I go. And so he's like, he says something about it. Oh, but I will, I'm not a Christian, but blah, 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 about whatever. I don't know. And it's going, wah, 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 as he talks about Buddha. Wah, 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 wah. I'm just ignoring it, kind of, or I've checked out. And I'm like, Hannah, don't ruin this. This is a perfectly good dinner. Everybody's cool. Everybody's fun. The people at the table are awesome. Don't be a weird Christian. Again, don't be weird. So I'm letting him want for a while. And I'm like, just so you know, one day maybe we'll talk about it, how we differ. He kind of almost wanted to like bait me into talking about like having a debate over faiths. I'm like, I'm not about to sit up here and start debating you over religious things at a party. Like, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. So I kind of like put it to bed again. Like, okay. Before you know it, a couple hours pass. As you know it, the devil is busy. So now, like, he walks me to my car, and I'm like, okay. And I drove separately because, like, I don't really know him like that. So we drive separately, not because I love driving, but because I trust no one. So he walks me to my car, and then he brings it up again. Oh, God, I'm exhausted at this point. I'm exhausted. Y'all, I became the crazy Christian just like that. I screamed, Jesus is Lord! Jesus is Lord! And we never dated again. And this is why you can't date somebody from a different religion. Because at the end of the day, you might scream at them, Jesus is Lord. And then hurry up, get in your car, slam the door, and leave. That's what happened. I can't make it up. Who can make up a story like that? You're welcome. What's my opinion of interracial dating and marriage? I have no opinion. I think it's hard enough to find somebody that you like that likes you, somebody that you think is cute, who thinks you're pretty. I think all that's hard enough. Hard enough to find somebody who's a Bible believing, Jesus loving, surrendered life Christian. However you can find that, you've done well if you can find it. So, however you find it, I don't think it matters what color, any of that. I don't think any of that stuff matters. Just find that, and then get picky. I bet you any money that there's nobody left after you find that. I don't know a lot of people like that. So yeah. How am I? I'm good, Dorian. How are you? Um, India's in the house. Welcome. How long should a couple date before marriage? Ooch. But I think it depends on how old you are and how mature you are. So I think the more spiritually mature you are, the better your discernment should be, and the stronger your relationship with Jesus should be. So if you are more spiritually mature and you hear from God, then you should be able to wrap it up quicker, as long as you have good discernment, you are have a regular prayer life, and you really understand discernment from the Holy Spirit, the peace of God over your decisions, or a lack of peace. And so maybe you've never been married before, but maybe you've applied for jobs, or you've moved out of town, or you've made big decisions where you've consulted God. And so you know what the peace of God over a decision feels like. So that's what you're looking for. You're not looking for an audible, like, she's your wife. You're not really looking for that. I mean, although some people get it, not many, but some people do get that. But I think you're looking for peace over your situation. So if you're spiritually mature, have a good discernment in general, make good decisions. I mean, if you're a wise person, good critical thinker, you make good decisions. you have a relationship with Jesus, you have if you've been living a surrendered life to Christ, then your discernment is even stronger because you don't have a lot of mixture going on in your mind. Your discernment is actually stronger. So, if you've been walking with Christ and you feel good about your walk, you feel good about your relationship with God, you understand the peace of God over decisions that you make, then I don't think it's going to take more than a year for a grown person. I mean, this is like, I'm talking about a grown person, a grown and spiritually mature person. I don't think it takes really more than a year. If you're pushing it, it may take 2 years, but that's because you really don't have like that trust, or you really aren't hearing from God. You don't have that peace, or you've been all over the place, so you don't have that peace because you've been all over the place. I honestly think our taste gets a little bit is difficult to identify when you have your person, when your tastes are in the world. So does that make sense? So like if you've been dabbling a lot, let's say you've been fornicating a lot, let's say you done had all the whole team kind of thing. If you've had all these things, your taste buds might be a little bit different. So now you're comparing a Christian life to a worldly life, which these things are not even compatible. So your taste buds might be different, and that might delay you. Delay your ability to say yes, delay your readiness, delay all of those things because your mind is still you're troubled. Your mind is troubled because you're still working and detoxing from other stuff. Does that make sense? So if you've consumed, I'll use that word, if you've consumed a variety of different things, then it kind of messes up your palate a little bit, you know? If you spray a bunch of cologne at the jewelry store, then when you get a nice scent, you can't tell that that's a really nice scent. Do you see the difference? So, but if you've been abstaining, all that kind of good stuff, you've been in relationship with God, imagine the first spray, you smell it, you're like, oh God, that is so nice. That is so fresh. That is so good. That is like, do you know the difference? You see that? So if you've been feeding a lot on all of your worldly desires, however that looks, because that might look different in different people, then it does make it a little bit, when you smell the right scent, when this right scent passes you, you might pass it by because you're like, oh, no, but last year I smelled this scent and that scent. That one smelled a little bit more like green trees, and this one smelled a little bit more like spearmint. And I'm in the mood for lavender. Like, yeah, but that's a taste thing because your tastes have been, you haven't detoxed all your taste. So I think that makes it harder. That's actually, I think, the issue with people when they're taking 5 and 6 and 7 years. Either they got soul ties, you know, either they got soul ties, they don't have good discernment, they don't have good critical thinking, they're led by their flesh, or it's just they have not detoxed all of the people that their body has been through. They can't see clearly yet. So when the right thing hits them, they don't even see it because they're so used to the wrong thing. So yeah, if you're all detoxed from all the stuff, it probably will take you like a year, maybe less. And if you're grown, like if you are grown, spiritually mature, and detox, a year or less than a year. If you just want to plan something really fancy, maybe you're doing 2 years. If you are, I think after 2 years, that it's not your person. Move on. If you're not certain and it's like you're at the 2 year mark, I just think move on. That's not your person. Or if it is like that lady that did the 9 years that we just talked about, that's diabolical. Period. Like, I mean, I'm glad it worked out for her. She's happy, but it couldn't be me. 9 years? Get out of here. Get out of here. I think 2 years is long enough. 1 year is, honestly, think about it, guys. I want you to be practical about this. If you're doing this God's way, you are seeing each other and you're abstaining. And then my question is flipping back to you. How long do you want to be certain about somebody and abstain? I'll put the question right back to you. Because if the goal is to stay Christ-like in the relationship until you're married, then I'm not certain how a 2 years of dating, courting, whatever you want to call it, 2 years of seeing each other in person, one on one and all this, I'm not sure how 2 years of that equals honoring God long term. Because after all, we are human. Our bodies are made to fit together like a puzzle. They are made that way. So I don't think that a person is generally going to do well in a long term committed courtship in marriage is not in the reasonable future. I don't think that they do well. I think people fall into sin. I think sin should be avoided. So I don't think 2 years is reasonable. Does that make sense? If you're seeing each other and courting and you love each other and it's working out, then what are you doing? Like, all you're going to do is transgress God. That's all that's going to happen. So when you know that things are starting to then you need to just go sign the paper. Doop, get it done. Doesn't have to even be a wedding. Just go get it signed. Get it signed. Have a wedding later. Get it signed so that you're not in sin. I think that's a very big deal. But yeah, I mean, if you want to have a big wedding in 2 years, have a big wedding in 1 year, get it signed, get that thing signed. That's what I say. We don't know the day or the hour. Jesus could come back. Someone could die. Anything could happen. And you don't want to die and not be right with God. I just don't think that's wise. I think if you're younger, I honestly still think the time frame is reasonably similar. The difference is when you're a little bit younger, you have to figure out more or less how is the guy going to provide for the family. I think that's the biggest issue when you're younger is has he moved out from his parents? Does he have a job? Can he afford an apartment or something to lay your head, to put the woman in? He's got to have a housing situation. So the younger the man, the harder it is for him to have a house, a car, a job. It's just harder. So until he has those things, those are prerequisites. So until he has those things, even if he's got a house that he's got in the built a house on his family's property or something, whatever that looks like for that family, even if they're living on a family compound of multiple families on one plot of land, I think that's fine. As long as he has a place to put her head, if it's, a drivable city, he's got to have a way to drive her around. And, and he's got a job to feed her. Those are the prerequisites. So a younger man's got more of a financial thing to get past. That financial thing is what's going to take him more time than anything. Because if a marriage without a provider is not a marriage, it simply is not. So he's not ready to be in headship if he can't feed and clothe his wife. Because if that wife gets pregnant, he's got to be able to do that for a child. So if he can't do that for a wife and that wife gets pregnant, first year, the other lady I spoke about, first year she's pregnant. If she's pregnant and she's 20 weeks pregnant, if he doesn't have a job, then now what? So he does have to have those things. And it may take him 5 years to get a place to live, a car, and a job. It may take him 5 years. If it takes him 5 years to get that, then he needs to wait until he's got that. But he doesn't need to have an expensive car. He could have an old beat up car. He doesn't have to have an expensive place to live. He could just have a small, reasonably priced apartment. He doesn't have to have a fancy job. It could be a job at the grocery store. It doesn't have to be the top of his career or anything. It can be done. I was 23 years old and I had, my job, my car, and a place to live. So maybe at 18, you're struggling to get that. Maybe by the time you're 20, you finally have those things. If you've got those things, then you're ready to start courting and looking and all those things. So once you've got that, then you date the girl. I think it comes down to the same thing. An 18-year-old's hormones, 20-year-old's hormones are not going to be any. It's not going to be simple for him to keep himself controlled either. So it's the same thing. You know, a year, maybe two, after he's got his stability there. So it's the stability that's holding him back. I think the timeline is about the same. For the older people who are spiritually mature, they already have their money. There's no question about it. Anybody who's grown, they've got whatever vehicle they need to get around. They've got whatever job. They've got whatever roof over their head. Those people don't need to like get at the top of their career. They just need to get married. So a year or two, that's enough. And the more spiritually mature you are, the more certain you are, the more you've heard from God. You can probably do it in 6 months, 4 months, 3 months. You can do it fast if you've heard from God. You can do it fast if you've been friends for a long time. You don't have to spend years if you already know the person from church for like, you know, 5 years at church. I've known the person. You've been hanging out in the same friendship circle for 3 years. You probably know everything about them already. And so you like actually court for a few months, plan the wedding, and you're married in 6 months. So those dynamics play a role. So I'm talking clean, just met, a year, maybe 2 years. But if you already have a lot of history, then maybe you don't need up to 2 years. Maybe you need less. If you're not planning a big wedding, you don't need all that time. And I don't think the big wedding should be, I don't think if you're looking at falling into sin versus having a big wedding, I think you should avoid the sin. Like, don't like, oh, wait, let's wait for the big wedding. And then you're fornicating like crazy leading up to the wedding. I just think, like, go sign the paper at the courthouse, set up the big wedding for a year or two away, and then have the big wedding. I don't think that's what I think. Yeah, that's what I think. Rather than be in sin, I think that's a horrible idea. You want God's blessing over your marriage, you know? It's not just that simple. Like, you don't want to open the doors to the enemy being in your marriage. And imagine if you're a Christian dating a Christian and you want the woman to follow you, if you're going against God and she knows it, there's a respect there that you need her to have for you. And that comes from you first respecting your creator. So yeah. Mm. Let's see what you guys. But you know what? To each their own. At the end of the day, here's the reality. And this is just, I can tell you this from my experience of living in the world and mostly being an atheist, non Christian, all of that for most of my life. The reality is, when you don't make that decision and you just stay kind of cycling around the dating, it usually leads to sin. It just does. And sin doesn't lead to more certainty. Like, if you fornicate with someone more, you don't feel more certain about them. And I can only go back to like my like worldly relationships after a year of dating, in even the worldly sense. This is like worldly relationships, do all the worldly things. After a year of dating, there's nothing new under the sun I learned about that guy. And there's nothing new after 1 year of dating that guy learned about me. If that guy was uncertain about me at the end of 1 year, that guy was never certain about me at year 4 or year 5. They were never going to be. So the longer you know someone, the certainty does not increase. And even for me, I dated one guy 4.5 years. There was one day I was traveling to visit him, and he pulled out this box, and I almost, you know what, in my pants, because I was like, I suddenly got anxiety. Okay, suddenly got anxiety out of nowhere because I thought it was going to be a proposal. It turns out it wasn't, but I didn't want the proposal. Do you guys see that? 4.5 years, and I was like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Like, I had a feeling of angst. It wasn't a ready feeling. It was a no, no, no. So I lived with that guy for 4.5 years. You guys see that? I lived with that guy for 4.5 years. At the end of 4.5 years, I was not ready, and neither was he. So that didn't change a thing. It didn't change a thing. I didn't want it, and neither did he want it. Actually, I'm happy we're not together. Does that make sense? Like, we were not right for each other. Now I can see everything clearly. But in it, sin does not increase your certainty. And also, time does not increase your certainty. I would say once you're past a year, you're not going to learn anything new unless you're just dealing with a pathological liar, which you shouldn't be. Your discernment should have kicked in that that's a liar. At a year, you know if somebody lies because they've already been caught lying multiple times if they're a liar. At the end of 2 years, if you're not certain, you definitely should move on. I am so strong for that because I have not seen, even in my own like 4 year relationships, 3 year relationships, I'm telling you, the more years that go by, your certainty does not increase. Whatever concern you had at year one, at year three, you have the same concern. Same concern. Like, I dated somebody who's like, their temperament was like, they were just fly off the handle temperament. And I was like, at year three, it was the same issue I was worried about at year one is the same thing I was worried about at year three. The issue that you have usually within the first 90 days is the same issue that typically breaks you up. That's been my experience. So whatever issue that it's there in the first 90 days, if they are scandalous, always got third party issue, some other man or woman floating in and out constantly in the first 90 days, you're usually at year one, they have the same issue and that's what breaks you up. That's what actually the 90-day issue is the issue that breaks you up at year one. If you make it to the end of year one and you feel like you've had an honest, transparent relationship, that's probably one that you can put in the thingy for possible marriage. But at the end of year one, if you already caught them like lying for a living, you already caught them in weird situations, you've lost trust. Honestly, that's a lot of information for year one. That's a lot of information. This is like the easiest time to be on good behavior. And in year one, you've been caught lying multiple times. That's probably a wrap. If you haven't like broken over the actual lie already, the thing is, it's in your head and you can't move forward because you don't actually trust. That's what's actually in your head and it stops you. So I'm telling you, those little things that happen, even if you don't break up because you're already one flesh and you already like whatever, it doesn't leave your head and it stays there and you're thinking like, can I trust this person because they did this? Can I, even if you don't bring it up, even if you don't make it a big deal, this is how sin works itself out in relationships. Let alone there being like no repentance. So yeah. Oh, ask for advice. Don, put it in the chat. How did I know when I was ready for marriage? I knew I was not ready for marriage and I did it anyway. So that's interesting. That's an interesting question. Um, I've only been married once. I've been engaged, and I've been near engaged a couple of times. So when I got married, I got a word from the Lord, and I wasn't even saved. I got a word from the Lord I shouldn't get married, and I know exactly where I was sitting. I know what I was thinking, and it was not made up. I literally did not have cold feet. The Lord put on my heart that I should not do it, and I was very rebellious. So I remember hearing from the Lord, and I was sitting in the bed in my parents' house, and I'm just like sitting here, like, and I remember hearing it in my head, like that I should not do it. And I went like this. I just went like this. Like I heard it so clear in my head, like not audibly, but I knew that I shouldn't do it. And I went like this because I thought I knew better than God. So I did it anyway. But God had warned me not to get married. So God warned me and it went bad. But God warned me. So I cannot tell you anything except so I did not have peace about that. Does that make sense? It was not cold feet and I know exactly the feeling. It was not like, oh, I'm a little nervous. No, 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 no. It was a do not do this. Do not do this. And God will send messengers. My dad came and was like, night before the wedding, don't do it, BB. You don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. We'll cancel it. You don't have to show up. I'll take care of it. And I was like, no, daddy, with my little 21-year-old self. I'm doing it. I wasn't 21, but I was about 21. I was 21 and 3/4. Anyways, so yeah, you'll get peace about it. So you'll know you should get married if you have someone who also wants it and you have peace about it. So, you know, you can't have peace about it and the other person doesn't want it. That's not how peace works. It means the other person who's a willing participant wants the same thing. They're willing to move forward and you have peace about it. Like any other decision, like if you were to move and you consulted God, if you were to change jobs and you consult God, if God leads you to do something in ministry and you feel like his nudging for that, there's peace over everything. Even when there's trouble, when you did ministry, for instance, you did ministry and the ministry runs into trouble, but you had supernatural peace, even though you don't know a way out of whatever financial situation. That's the kind of peace I'm talking about that God gives you when you're on the right track for marrying someone. So the person themselves, they're attracted, they desire to be married, they want to marry you. That's all like legit. That's true. And plus, you feel peace about it from God that this is a right person for you. That in God's perfect will is not going to fall out of the Bible standpoint, right? So if you like have an ungodly relationship with a woman and then you're trying to go to God and have peace about it, think about it. God's not going to give you peace about when you're in sin. He's not going to give you peace about that. He's going to want you to be right and repent and be right before him. You know what I mean? He's going to want you to repent. Not saying that you can't get married if you've fallen out of, thingy, but you need to repent. Your soul is very important, not just your marriage. Does that make sense? So you know when you're ready because I can only tell you you have peace about it. Here's the way I have peace right now. And here's a perfect example. Right now I have peace, but I have peace around, like I've always done this thing where I dated a lot. I dated a lot, right? So for the first time in my life, I have peace around not dating. Like I don't have, anytime I think about dating, it feels hard, it feels heavy, and I don't want to do it. And this is like a new feeling. It feels hard, heavy. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't have any desire to. And it feels heavy and difficult, like a task, like going up a whole mountain on hunger with no water on a sunny day. Like it feels like that. Thought of it feels like that. So it feels like a natural level of heaviness to even think to do it. And I don't want to. So there's a supernatural disinterest for me to date. Supernatural disinterest. That's not me. I'm not really wired like that. I'm kind of a controlling, like, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to make this. I want to make that. So for me to go from a person who's always been like, I want to date. I want this. I want that. I want this. To supernaturally have zero desire to do it, that seems heavy. I don't want to do it. That's not a me thing. That's God saying, this is your wilderness. This is your quiet time. Just sit. And sit does not mean I need to do anything. It just means sit. And that's a supernatural thing. I absolutely know I have peace about not dating. I have peace about it. So much peace that I don't entertain it. I don't entertain it when it comes up on the street, this and that. I don't entertain it. I don't even play with it. I don't fiddle with it. When somebody calls me, messages me, oh, you want to go out? I just block them. Like, oh, you still have my number? Okay. Oh, okay. Block. I have a supernatural peace about that I've never had. That might mean God has someone for me. That might mean that God has decided that I'm to be set apart and that's not for me. I don't know which one it means, but I trust God more than I trust myself now that I'm actually spiritually mature. When I was unbeliever, God told me stuff, I'd be like, nope. Now God gives me the peace over something. I stop doing. When he gives me peace, I stop doing stuff. So that comes with maturity. So that's the same if I was with a person and the person likes me and they want to marry and I have the same level of peace about being with them, then this is the same peace that I'll feel when it's time to move forward. It's not that I know what's going to happen. It's that I trust God is in control of it and that he's signed off on this. So does that make sense? The peace that I have, it's not a me thing. You have to know my friends, you have to know me. I would always be on a date, on a date, on a date. I never had a shortage of being on a date, right? And to in a season feel like, and I always said when I get out of school, that's when I'm going to date. When I get out of school, then I will start looking because I feel like I can look once I'm out of school. It's so hard to do. I'm too many papers, too many this. I said, when I get out of school, I'm going to start dating. But once I got out of school, I had a supernatural peace about, nope, don't do. So when people call, I just block them. I don't do it. I don't do it and I don't even fiddle with it because it's not my season to do it or that's not my person. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And does that make sense? I don't want to play with their mind. I don't want to lead them on. I don't want to give them hope. It's not my season or it's never going to be my season. I'm not sure which one it is. Either this isn't my season or God has said, no marriage for you. I don't know which one it is, but the difference is I trust God more than I trust myself. I don't trust myself at all with this process. I do trust God. I do trust that if he has someone, that he already planned that, picked it out, and it's done. So done that I need do nothing. It's either done or it's not, and whatever peace I have in this wilderness will extend for the rest of my life. That it's one or the other. But he'll let me know. He'll fix it. He'll change it. And it's kind of, I think you have to have found peace with God in some other season, in some other event, in some other scenario to know what that peace is like. So it has to be like maybe it's a death of a loved one. Maybe you learned his peace that way. And someone you lost, and at some point in the death and the grieving, you were like almost irrational about it, like super duper stressing about it. Does that make sense? And crying and grieving and can't understand and falling apart. There was a point in the grieving where you were actively like feeling nuts about grieving. And then there was a point where you turned a corner and the peace of God fell over you. And either you understood the death or the death had new meaning for you, but you didn't have to wallow in it as if you had no hope. You understood it, you had peace about it, and you were like, okay, this is it. Does that make sense? And at that point where you turn the corner, at some point, did you shed a tear? Maybe you did. But are you able to have peace about knowing that person's gone? Yes, you do. So it doesn't hit all the same way. It doesn't break you and shatter you all in the same way. Do you feel emotion? Yes. Is it that everything inside of you is still shattered? Maybe it's different. It's just different because you have peace on top of that shattering. So that is the only way I can explain it. And it's a hard thing to explain because it's a God thing. And so I would just point you to any other area of your life where you experienced peace. It could have been the craziness after a death and then finally the peace. It could have been praying about a job and then, and then God tells you, no, don't switch your job and you have peace about not switching. Or God pushing you to go move your job and then you have peace about switching. A peace about a move, peace about letting go of someone, a friendship that's not good for you. Maybe when you had the friendship, it felt toxic and you felt tense and you felt pulled a lot. I like to bring out my little thingy. You felt pulled in the friendship. And then when you needed to sever the friendship, as soon as you severed it, you felt peace. I mean, I have felt peace in one of my I had a near engagement and it was a wild thing. It wasn't a long engagement. It wasn't a long dating season, but The guy had revealed stuff to me that I was like, oh my gosh, it was a lot. I basically realized that I thought that he was using some substances, and I'm very big on anti-substance. Like I'm like this is back when I wasn't saved. I was very big, even though I wasn't saved. I was like not a girl who likes substances. I'm a nurse, so I don't like substances. That's not my thing. So I went out of town with him, and I identified that there were some substances involved with that visit. That he went out with his friends, came back, and he was completely on substances. And I don't even mean alcohol; I mean substances, crazy stuff. And I was like, "What's going on?" And I got super scared. And that was it for me. I was like, "I'm done with this. Like, this is not for me. Like, I can't put you in charge of my life. This is scary." And I went home, and like when I went home, we like drove back from out of town, and on the drive back, I was thinking about like all the stuff that I needed to give back to him. So I'm like thinking like, okay, I've got this, I've got that, I've got this. It's located here, it's located there, it's located here. Okay, I've got these three things I need to give to him because I wanted to end this and make it clean. I went and grabbed the three things, came in the house, and it was kind of wild because he could feel it. So it was a really, really bad drive. I think we are coming back from like North Carolina or something. It was a crazy ride home. He's sweating the whole time because he knows the breakup is coming, because he knows he messed up. And I'm just like trying to keep the peace. I didn't have my car, obviously, so I'm just trying to keep the peace and get back to my house. So we get to my house. I grab the three things, one, two, three. I give it to him. I say, hey, it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. I didn't offer any explanations. It's not going to work out. That's it. Like, cancel the ring. Don't make the ring, because actually we were going to get the ring made on that trip. So he was going to he drew out the ring or whatever he did. He gave the ring idea to his friend whose dad was a jeweler, and the friend's dad was going to make the ring. So I was like, don't make that ring. Do not do that. Whatever that was, don't do that. Don't do it. And I was like, I gave him the stuff, and that was it. As soon as I closed the door and locked it, supernatural peace came over me. Like peace, total peace. So you get peace even when you cut off something that is not meant for you. That same peace you will have when you're moving toward the thing that is for you. Because if it's not for you, the Holy Spirit, the discernment of the Holy Spirit will be kicking and scratching with like worry and angst. And you will feel that. God, like, the nights you want to go out and you're going to get in trouble, and the Holy Spirit's like, don't go out, stay home, don't go out. Those nights in your childhood when you were up to no good, and the Holy Spirit told you not to do it, and then you wreck, or something happens to one of your friends, and you just get out by the skin of your teeth. But God was all that while saying, don't, you don't need to be there. Or you just get out by the skin of your teeth, and then as soon as you get out, everything blows up, or there's some fight or some incident happens, right? That's what I'm talking about. Like, that tension that you have when God puts on your heart that there's an issue, that tension's what you have when you're not ready, or it's not the person. Like, probably that's not the person. If that's not there and you have peace, the same peace that you feel, like if after someone dies and you finally kind of heal and you feel peace about even speaking about them, that same kind of peace, like that's the peace you feel when you're ready. When you're ready and you have the right person, but the thing before that is you have to have the person. You got to love them. They love you. You're attracted to them. They're attracted to you. They said yes to you. They said, you said yes to them. Like all of that first, like that also was part of it too. So it can't be that you feel all that and then they're saying no, because that's not it. It's like you feel that way. They've agreed and all of that. You have peace. So yeah. Or you're floating the idea. Let's say you're floating the idea. And as you float the idea, you have peace about floating the idea. And then as you mention the idea, they're all in, they're agreeable. And as a week or two passes after you sit after that, you're like, yeah, I feel peace about it. If you don't have peace about it, you start feeling all kinds of tension, you're going to know. You're going to know. So I would just say, if this is a godly person and you're doing everything the godly way, it's very easy to feel that you have to remember we're children of God. We're his kids. He's not going to let you go into a war. Like, he's not going to let you walk right up into a war. You have to remember that. Like, we are his kids. That's how serious it is. We're his kids. If you are about to partner with someone who's evil, he's going to warn you. He's going to warn you. You're going to have conviction. So, yeah. Anywho, guys, it's late. I'm not sleepy yet, but I'm going to hop off, though. Hello, Pedro from Baja, California. And you said Mexicali, Baja, California, Mexico? That's a lot. Welcome. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, Pedro. You guys must have missed the part where I said, I don't really date. So I'm in a wilderness. I'm in a quiet season, and I don't even play about it. Like, I don't even try to pretend like I'm not. I just come right out and say, nope, I don't date. People ask me, oh, you want to? Nope, I don't date. I don't do it. If I was gonna do it, guys, I absolutely promise you, I'm not gonna date somebody for my podcast. I can actually promise you that I'm not gonna do it. So I can just tell you that's not. If I'm gonna date, I'm gonna go back to like online dating and all that kind of good stuff. So if you're looking for me to date, find me on online dating. If I'm not on online dating, I'm probably not dating. Okay, guys, I'm hopping off. I'm hopping off. Happy happy week, everyone. It's probably Sunday if you're in the United States. If you're on the other side of the world, it might be your Monday. So happy Monday. Happy work day if you're on the other side of the world. We're moving into Sunday, so we get another day off, and we're going to love it. We're going to love every minute of it. Guys, catch you when we go live again. Not sure if I'll go live again tomorrow. I'll probably cut some videos and do some video edits. So look forward to videos. I'm going to probably post some videos. So if I get busy with videos, then there's a better chance that I won't go live, but we'll see. You never know. And that's true. Women are also attracted to looks first, too. Yes, we are. That's true. Let's not lie. Okay, everybody. Bye, everybody. I'll catch you guys next time. If you haven't already, be sure to hit the like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe. If you haven't already, be sure to turn on the notifications, everyone. Peace, everybody. Bye.